Okay, the members that were present there. Okay, those minutes are approved. Okay, and the last item on the approvals are the manifests for this evening, and the accounts payable manifest being signed tonight total $817,343.37, and the payroll manifest total $1,491,323.45, for a total manifest signing tonight of $2,308,666.82. Wait. Second. Thank you. Okay, all. As well. Okay, we're finished with approval of the minutes, so we will move into, before non-public, we'll go to the student report.
So this is a virtual reality presentation by Kim Gallimberti, and we have 3 students here. And Kim, I'll leave it to you to introduce the students, but I'm excited to see this.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing us to come tonight to demonstrate some new technology that we acquired at the middle school. My name is Kim Gallimberti. I teach 8th grade science on Team Summit. I have 3 students with me tonight. I have Aiden, and I have Nate and Drew, and they're here to assist us so that you can use the headsets, the virtual reality headsets. Aiden, do you want to take a moment and let people know what virtual reality is and how you use it at your home?
So VR is basically like, it's an immersive experience where you put on this headset and you're basically put into a whole different world where you can do schoolwork, you can chat with friends, you can play games, you can do all kinds of stuff in it. And at my home, I have a personal headset. It's different from these ones. These ones are designed for the classroom, but the one that I have at home, I can play games, I can socialize with my friends, we can do all kinds of cool stuff. I've even explored Rome in mine. So you can pretty much travel anywhere in the world whenever you want.
So virtual reality, VR, is used for much more than gaming and socialization. It is an immersive exploration that is beyond a 2-dimensional page in a textbook, allows for active 3-dimensional learning experiences that are just more active and not passive, like just looking through books and whatnot. So providing students with the experience of using virtual reality is really important because it not only allows them to have a deeper understanding of the content through that modeling and that interaction, but it gives them a head start using technology that is quickly advancing, and it's used in many career fields today. So for example, some fields where it's being used is just in business, where they're doing remote meetings, just to give that a more realistic interaction kind of feel. It's being used in healthcare for realistic medical procedure trainings. It's being used in manufacturing, so engineers will use it to virtually create, test, design prototypes before they actually build them. And the set that we got is from a company called Class VR. The portal that the company has created allows for teachers to preload content that they want the students to be able to see on those headsets, which is great. But the thing that I like about it the most is that you can actually push the content that you want the students to see at any particular time. And that way, while they're seeing whatever that content happens to be that you want them to see, you can instruct them as well. So I would like you to experience that tonight with the assistance of these three young gentlemen, and let you experience virtual reality if you haven't done so before. So guys, could you please pass the headsets out, and I'll go see if I can get it up and running for them.
Very loud. The microphone's in the computer, so it should be. I think there's a combination of the math. Yeah. What about now?
They're in the disaster right now. The lobby.
Do you guys see like a waiting room with like a few apps in it, or do you see like a gray?
So do I need the microphone?
It must not be in the waiting room.
Red? There we go. So my hope, is that good? Okay. So my hope is that you're seeing my name in just some gray background. No? Oh, you're seeing the room. All right, let me see. Okay. Give this a try. One second. So what you're seeing right now is that you can actually choose what you'd like to see, since I'm not able to pull up the push yet. So you can actually look at what you'd like to choose, and the button that is on the far right, you can click on that. Let's see if that works.
So there's going to be a little dot in the center of your vision, and you want to point that on the app and then hit that button, and it'll take you to what you want.
So my hope is that some of you are seeing an atom. Okay. Sometimes when you get them ready and then they sit for a while, they don't want to do what you want them to do. So if you're seeing the calcium atom, which I see that some of you are, the teacher portal that's up on the screen, you can look and see what the individual headsets are seeing, so you can monitor that way. So the students can interact with some chemistry content. So you're seeing the model here. And then there are lots of different contents to choose from, one of which is an animal cell.
If you tilt your head to the side, it will rotate the cell too.
Yes, if you tilt your head from one shoulder to another, you can rotate the object rather than try to turn around in your seat and whatnot. And it even has 360 videos. Here you go. Hopefully it will play for me. The headsets have sound. You can move your head from shoulder to shoulder to spin around. can see inside the helicopter. And you can virtually explore this volcano. You can even take virtual field trips, like visiting the Colosseum. And the last thing I have to share with you is the solar system. So if you use the same right button, you should be able to move forward if you hold it down and advance through the solar system. You can fly into the sun if you want to. You can turn and head towards any planet that you might see. And I thought I'd give you a minute to choose what you'd like to look at. So you should have been sent back to the home screen where you can choose. And again, if you look at the icon that you want to see, and you hit that right button, you should be able to open that. Thank you for letting us share these with you tonight.
Thank you, Aiden, Nate, Drew, and Mrs. Gallimberti. That was just amazing. I now I have to get one of those for my house. It's really great.
Okay, I think we're going to do public input now. Thank you. Okay, public input, it's listed as 15 minutes, but to be fair, 5 minutes per person. We'll do 5 minutes in the room out back. We'll do 5 minutes here, another 5 minutes there, and another 5 minutes in here, so everyone has equal time. So we'll start with anyone in the cafeteria who would like to speak first. Yes. I don't think anybody can hear you, Charlene. There's a little button on the upper left there, Charlene. Little tiny, no, turn it over. Little button on the upper left. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Yes, but you just speak up. Okay, I think what Charlene's trying to say is there's been some confusion about in public input. A lot of people are expecting the board to respond or answer some questions. Generally, that's not the policy. You're going to make your presentation. The board will make notes and get back to review what's been brought in public input and go from there. Charlene, are you okay now?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Jack, you're referencing policy BEDH, and I have shared part of this policy at board meetings in the past, but obviously it bears repeating. I direct you especially to number 5, where, Jack just mentioned that because our code of ethics requires Okay, thank you. We're not allowed to answer questions independently when we haven't had a chance to deliberate and make a decision. So whenever one of our attendees at a meeting has a specific question, I think what would be important to realize is that if you want the board to be able to give you an answer, it's important to call the superintendent's office and be asked to put on the agenda, because then that'll give the board a chance to deliberate before we can, and find out what the question is, deliberate, and then answer your questions that way. But I know that there have been a lot of comments on social media about the fact that our participants ask questions and that we sit and we don't answer the questions. And it's because we're precluded from doing that by our code of ethics, because we have to deliberate as a board. So I just thought it was important that everyone understands that before we have public input. Thank you.
Okay, now we're going to go to the cafeteria, and first person that wants to speak, 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Jessica Williams, Wolfeboro. Can you hear me, first of all, because we cannot hear you, so.
We can hear you fine.
So you can hear me fine. Well, the first thing I'm going to say is, on the record, we're unable to discern the meeting. We cannot hear anything that you're saying. It sounds like you're all underwater. Therefore, any decisions you've made while we're not able to discern the meeting should be null and void until we're all able to hear. Legally, that's what you can do. We can't hear you. This is worse than it was in the auditorium. Can you fix that or adjourn the meeting and we can reconvene another time where we can actually participate in the meeting?
Well, if you want to put your masks on, you can come into this room and participate in the meeting.
How many people are in that room? Can we sit in the back? Would you mind? Most of us have had COVID and recently have had COVID and are immune. So
if you have your masks on, you can come into this room. If you don't have your masks on, you cannot.
So we can't discern the meeting.
We're going to continue our meeting. Obviously, you can hear me, okay?
What? Can you say that again? We couldn't hear you.
Apparently, you could hear me because you just wanted to know if you could come into this room, if you had room. And I said if you wanted to wear masks, and you said you weren't going to do that. So obviously, you could hear me speaking at this point.
I can hear about 20% of what you're saying, and I'm using context to build the rest. It's very difficult. We do want to participate in the meeting, but we're not required to wear a mask to be.
You're required to wear a mask in the buildings in Governor Wentworth Regional School District.
How are we in the building if it's required? I'm confused. How can we be in this room?
This is public input. We're going to now move. We can shut you off, and we'll now move to this room.
So we cannot hear the meeting. We would like to hear the meeting. We'd hear it better in the auditorium, the other room, the music room, the first room that you put us in. This is much worse. Is that by design?
Yeah.
Certainly not by design. We're gonna temporarily delay the meeting, shut everything off, and then we'll come back and we'll reconvene in a few minutes.
Thank you very much. Yeah, would you like to mute us?
Test. Okay. Not sure where we want it to go. We'll pass it to whoever needs it.
I got my microphone. Okay. All right. They're in the library now, or the Plex. Can you hear me okay in the Plex? Okay. If anyone would like to speak in the Plex, we'll start the public input again for 5 minutes. So if you want to start again, we can do that, and then we'll come back into this room for 5 minutes.
Do I need to stand up because we're in a small room? So can you hear me okay? I
Yes,
just like to say
we
before
can.
I went up right now, we had the first 3 minutes talking about how I couldn't hear. So I'm going to start over. If that's okay.
Go ahead.
I have 5 minutes here. A couple things. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I know you were discussing dress code tonight, and you really weren't able to hear any of that conversation, but I'm aware that the dress code was being spoken about tonight. It has been requested that I just mention to you all that the students may appreciate if the dress code is uniform and not based on any teacher's whim on a particular day, such as removing a hat. So I'm just going to say that because I was asked to say that. Number two, I want to talk a little bit about the ESSER 3 funding because it says in the June 2021 meeting that you all received public comment on that. And I want to remind some of you that the public comment that was taken wasn't really, we weren't able to speak about the ESSER 3 funding, and the commentary that you all gave, the ideas that you put out there, as far as I know, were about putting a solar array, of using some of that $6.5 million. And if that's not the case, then I think I see a shaking head there. It's hard to see. It's turning into like
Jessica, we're going to discuss the ESSER funds during the budget presentation. If you want to hold off on that.
Okay, you're going to hold off on that?
Yeah, we have a whole presentation on the budgets that has to do with the ESSER funds a little bit later in the program.
Okay, well, you're required to take public comment for the ESSER 3 funding as a requirement of the,
Yes.
the funds being distributed. So I just want to say a couple things before you get to that, because I think, in my own opinion, a solar array or something like that is not necessarily in the best interest of the students who've been damaged by the COVID protocols. And regardless of whose fault we think that is, it doesn't really matter. But because I think Katie Hills is going to speak, and I've spoken to her several times via email regarding the state assessments, and seeing that about 58% of our students are below proficient in several subjects, I think we really need to focus a lot of these funds back on the students and not in infrastructure building for the school. So that would be one of my suggestions, is that I know 20% of it's required to go back to the students, but I think a summer school program isn't necessarily going to cut the mustard here. A lot of kids work, a lot of high school students work, they can't participate in a summer school program. So I would ask that maybe something else is discussed regarding the ESSER 3 funds. And the last thing is, I'm going to ask, I'm just trying to talk to everybody about everyone being so divisive. I know it's been a long haul the past 20 months or so, but I think it's the time is to stop being so divisive regarding the masked versus the unmasked, the vaccinated versus the unvaccinated. I think the science and the information is now showing us that some of these mitigation protocols aren't necessarily working the way that we had hoped, and that's unfortunate. But I think it's time to start looking at health precautions that actually do work, and that is creating a healthy body so that infection and disease cannot overrun us. And I think we all need to work together on that. So I'm going to ask, maybe you cool it a little bit with the putting us in a separate room, because we're not bad people. We want to participate. So thank you.
Okay, we'll move into this room. Mrs. Amatucci, if you'd like to go to the microphone, and for 5 minutes, please.
Just hit the button.
You hit the button on the bottom. It's on.
Yeah,
And speak right into the microphone so they can hear you.
okay. My name is Josephine Amatucci. I have lived in Wolfeboro for 25 years. I have a proposal to bring manufacturing education to the school. My idea is for the school to create a business class into your education system. I invented a mop made from a hand towel and a dish drying mat called Grandma's Rag Mop, and I have the patent. It's very simple to make. Basically, you just turn the towel up and over and around and you stitch it. No expertise in stitching is required. An investigation to my idea in manufacturing in a high school setting found yeah. What's happening? Yeah, what about it? Hit it off. Do you want me to talk without, I don't care. As long as you hear me.
The people in the other room have to hear you as well, so stand right there.
I'm not going nowhere.
Just speak right into this.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead, you can,
You mean do all my talking?
do your talking, I'll hold this until you talk.
Really? You want me to hold
No,
it?
I'll hold it, go ahead.
An investigation to my idea in manufacturing in a high school setting found that many high schools have student-run manufacturing businesses. There is the Owen Valley High School that has a manufacturing program which teaches screen printing, embroidery, and more as part of their school days. Then from 3:30 to 5:30, the students stitch the product after class, and they get paid for every product they complete. And that's exactly what I want to do. Now, I found the Owens School successful, and they told me this is their third year in the manufacturing, and they have 40 students participating. 40. This is where math and business skills come into play. It teaches students the importance of financial management as they keep their track on sales. In the manufacturing process that I have an idea about, they learn to sew, they learn to write a business plan, they sell the product online, they learn marketing, advertising, shipping, and distribution of the mop, which opens a wealth of education, especially for students who do not intend to go to college. This hands-on approach will attribute to an entrepreneur spirit, while kids will identify their own talents and gain self-confidence. I will be willing to buy and pay for all the materials they need and the sewing machines. But the only thing the school would have to do is to get a grant to pay for a teacher to direct them. And I say this. I say put up a notice on the bulletin board and tell the kids about this idea and see the response you get. And if you get a good response, I think we should go for it.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move to the back room for one more 5 minutes if we have somebody that would like to speak now, or we are going to have public input at the end of the meeting as well.
You all right? I reflect. Oh.
Yeah, all right, me too.
How you doing? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Martin Bailey. I was actually asked to come in and give a couple bits of information on Gillis today. Just wanted to share a couple things here. I'm here not on behalf of myself, but rather on behalf of the children of our future generation. What I'm about to present is just simple facts. I'm not here to push an agenda. I'm not here to push fear. I'm simply sharing knowledge and stating facts. A little information about myself. I'm a 42-year-old male. Around the world with my career as a professional pilot. Up until the beginning of this year, I was flying for a local medevac company, flying all kinds of trauma patients, as well as COVID patients. Can you hear me? You follow me? Okay. All right. I flew from the beginning and through the peak of the pandemic, and there was never a vaccine. I worked for a company of 50,000 plus employees, all involved in close proximity, critical care, medical transport involving the sickest of the sickest COVID patients. During this time, can you guess how many people in my company? 50,000 plus employees contracted COVID? 0. Fast forward 6 weeks. On December 24th, 2021, I lost my family due to the COVID-19 pandemic. My wife of 5 years, 5-year-old daughter, and 4-year-old son, all lost in the pandemic. On 3/19, as part of an FAA mandate, the federal air surgeon determined that the FAA medical certificate holders may not act as pilot command or in any other capacity as required flight crew members for 48 hours after each dose of Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson vaccines. Does that scare you? The FAA revokes a pilot's medical certificate, rendering their career useless in hopes of adverse reactions for 48 hours. Reactions. Now that I got that off my chest, I want to share with you just a couple bits of information. All I ask you today is just hear what I have to say, and please answer my one single question at the end of this. The following articles are what I'd like to share. The first article is on the topic of mask wearing. We all just want to do, return to some kind of normalcy, right? We all just want to feel or do what is the right thing, right? If one person chooses to wear a mask and the other person chooses not to, there shouldn't be any shaming, right? Personal choice, personal belief, right? A mask is meant to protect the person wearing it, right? Or wait, is the mask supposed to protect the unvaccinated? Or wait, you know what? Never mind. I lost track of who these masks are supposed to protect. Every day there's something new on the news about the masks, right? Following article dated 6/16 titled Dangerous Pathogens Found on Children's Face Masks. Okay? It's a group of parents in the Gainesville, Florida area sent 6 face masks to a lab at the University of Florida requiring analysis of contaminants found on these masks after they had been worn. The resulting report found that the 5 masks were contaminated with bacteria, parasites, and fungi, including 3 with dangerous pathogenic and pneumonia-causing bacteria. Although the test is capable of detecting viruses, including the SARS-CoV-2, only one virus was found on the mask, which was a herpes virus, cold sore. Okay? The analysis detected the following 11 dangerous pathogens on the mask. If you'd like, I could read the medical words or make it easier for you to just read it out. Pneumonia, tuberculosis, meningitis, sepsis, Gardus, and granulomatous, amic. I can't even read that last word. If you want, I can keep reading it. There's 11 different things here. There's causes from Lyme disease, food poisoning, diphtheria. I mean, the list goes on and on. Okay. Now, if you want, I can keep reading down further on. It says the parents participant in the study, they wanted to contact this lab and were concerned about the potential contaminants on masks that the children were forced to wear all day at school. And the masks were masks are either brand new, freshly washed, only worn for that test. Okay. Continue. The next article. Okay. Myocarditis and pericarditis. Okay. From the CDC's website. Okay. It's dated November 12, 2021. CDC and its partners are actively monitoring reports of myocarditis and pericarditis after COVID-19 vaccination. After monitoring included reviewing data and medical records and evaluating the relationships of the vaccine to the incidents. Okay? Myocarditis is an inflammation of the heart muscle. Pericarditis is an inflammation of the outer lining of the heart. So in case of the body immune system causing inflammation response to an infection or some other trigger. If you'd like, I can keep reading.
20 seconds to go.
I'm sorry?
20 seconds.
20 seconds. Okay. Well, you can go ahead and search that article if you want. Okay? It's pretty straightforward. Let's see here. So you know about that. Pretty much what I'm trying to get here is with what's going on, you're going to have a max exodus coming here your way pretty soon. The max exodus is going to be new jobs, students leaving.
Thank you.
I'll come back every day.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll come back to this room. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in this room? Got 5 more minutes, and then we're going to get into our regular meeting. You can use. See if it'll work. If not, you can use this one.
I don't hear any feedback, but that seems promising. I really don't like hunching over, so I'm going to hold this. But my name is Bre Burbank. I am a resident. Yeah.
At least this one's working, so.
Thanks for teaching. I'm a resident of Warrenton, Virginia, and I grew up here in Wolfeboro. I have a child that attends carpenter school. So I came to this meeting. I've been watching the meetings. I always watch them on YouTube, and I've asked in the past if there was an option of doing any kind of virtual participation, which it seems like there's a hybrid that is now in place given the position of people that are attending without masks on. So I'm hoping that perhaps in the future you'd be willing to consider something that's a little bit more diverse and reaching outside of just another room in the building. But my question for you is, I know that recently the district offered vaccinations for school-age children and for younger children, and I want to know if you have any plans of dividing the children that have been vaccinated from the children that haven't, because I know that is a policy that's being put into place in other parts of the country, and I'd like to know if that's something that is going to be discussed with some of your COVID updates, and if it's something that this district is going to consider doing. I personally think that that's an abhorrent application of education, but that's something that it is important to me, and I want to know if that's something that you're considering. And the other question that I have for you is, I know that I think it was the October meeting, you kind of loosely touched on the National School Board Association's letter to Biden requesting to have parents that were attending meeting as domestic terrorists. And I want to know a little bit more about your specific position on that. And, I know you do have on your agenda the New Hampshire School Board Association information discussion, if that's in relation to their recent statement that they've withdrawn from the national board, or if that's something completely separate. Because I think for me, watching this from YouTube, it seems like there is a tremendous amount of division going on specifically in this district. I know it's not exclusively here, but it seems like that is absolutely an issue. It doesn't seem like it's an issue that's going away. And I think it's a really poor use of police resources to have law enforcement at school board meetings serving out court summons to parents. So I'd like to know what you think about that.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to have public input again at the end of the meeting, and we can move on with our next agenda item, I think. You want to do testing now, or do you want to do the... Okay. Testing for Katie Hills. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm very sorry about that. I skipped right over student representative report. Fallon, sorry about that.
Hello? Okay. So first off, I'm going to start talking about student council. Before November break, we had our annual Thanksgiving baskets. Student council and the rest of the school brought in canned goods and other Thanksgiving goods to their A blocks. We aimed for having 30 baskets originally, but we ended up getting 35, which was great. Students delivered baskets in the areas of New Durham, and each A block brought them in. The class that brought the most food was Mrs. Murray DeCarmo's World History AP class. Our next upcoming project for Student Council is the organization of Wish Upon a Star. This is where teachers and students are welcome to select a star on a bulletin board posted on a wall in the school somewhere. I don't know exactly where it is. But the point of this is to pick a star that a child has sent in of like what kind of gift they would like. and you buy the gift, you wrap it, and you return it to Mr. Myers and Mrs. Jacobs. This activity is to ensure that children in our community get a special something for Christmas. For NHS, we held our first annual Kingswood and Kids that happened last Saturday on December 4th. This is where kids and NHS high school students participate in gym activities and crafts. And NHS students as well cleaned up trash around our school last week and collected at least 4 bags of trash. And for theater, the Kingswood Theater program put on Mamma Mia a few weeks back on November 19th, 20th, and 21st. I personally did not go, but I heard from other members that it went great. There's now an open registration for their next production. They're having auditions this week. And for sports, as you can see, winter sports teams of basketball, girls and boys are here today. This is the first season that will have a regular game schedule with more opponents down south and north. And the LRTC had their career fair on November 18th. This career pathway fair came businesses, military apprenticeships, trade schools, and community colleges attended. And lastly, there's a reminder for January 7th, that is the last day that senior pictures can be submitted for the yearbook.
Thank you, Fallon. All right, so I think we'll move into our regular agenda item. I think Katie Hill's up next. I'm gonna try this instead. Oh, actually, okay.
Thank you. So it has been a few years, given the pandemic, since I've done an assessment update, but here I am, and I wanted to share not only the results of our most recent set of state testing, but also some of the procedures we're putting in place to address some of our concerns. You may advance, Karen. Okay. Thank you. So over the past couple of years, assessment, specifically state assessment, has been a little bit choppy given the pandemic. The last time that we took a state assessment was actually in the spring of 2019. If you recall, in the spring of 2020, the state was in lockdown, and so we had no state test, and we also did not have any local spring benchmarks or assessments. Last year, or last fall, can you go back? Thank you. Last fall, 2020, the state decided that because they did not have any state testing the prior spring, they were going to put in place a modified version of the state assessment. Students in grades 4 through 8 took the prior grade level's state interim. So a 4th grade student took the 3rd grade interim, state interim, in math and ELA. We also had our NEWA assessment last fall 2020, so that teachers had an idea of where students were coming in following that abbreviated spring. That's okay. Oh. All set, Karen? Okay, perfect. One back. Oh, other way. Yes, thank you. Last spring, or this most recent spring, the state had state testing for, as normal, all students in grades 3 through 8, and grades 11 took the SAT, and grade 10 took the PSAT. And unfortunately, they did not have an option for those students who were fully remote, and so across the state and here as well, we did have lower than average participation rates. For our students who are in school, we also prioritized certain local spring benchmarks so that we could get an idea of the progress. And then this most recent fall, we have been doing local fall benchmarks through ExactPath. At the elementary level, teachers have been doing the Fountas and Pinnell benchmarking for literacy. So we're trying to get back on our normal schedule. You can go ahead. There are many things that have been influencing our learning over the past couple of years, most of them pandemic related. One of the biggest pieces is unfinished learning. Obviously, we've had less time in the classroom given the abbreviated school year at the end of the 1920 school year when we all went remote. And then last year during hybrid, we had less face-to-face instructional time. We still had remote and we had asynchronous learning, but we've realized that it just is not the same as face-to-face learning. What we did do was last year we shifted and focused on priority competencies, trying to shave away sort of the secondary pieces so that those teachers who were in the classroom and seeing students could really focus on that which was most foundational or important. Other influences are that students had a variety of experiences last year. Some students were in the hybrid model, some students were fully remote, some students opted for homeschool, and so students have come to us with a variety of learning experiences and access or exposure to grade level curriculum competencies. Both last year and continuing this year, we have had higher numbers of student and staff absences. I hear quite a bit about teachers struggling to continue to move forward when they have high numbers of their students out for either being sick or quarantining, and so that is affecting what's happening in the classroom. We have had, as we've been saying it here, students in many ways are having to relearn how to do school when we were out for so long or in a different type of educational model for over a year. we've come back and had to sort of reestablish our routines and the practices, and that has taken time. And finally, most specifically to math, we've had to give teachers the permission to move on. We go into education mostly as educators because we want students to do well. And sometimes that means that we get stuck because not all students are where they're supposed to be. And so sometimes our teachers have held back and are not moving forward, and it means that you're not getting through what you need to get through. And when it comes to our math curriculum, it is structured in such a way that it is very different than the math curriculums of the past, that were often a spiral curriculum. The idea here is that you can move on with this math curriculum, even if not all students have mastered it on day one, because days 2 through 180 are looking at the topics of the grade level through slightly different perspectives. So given all of these factors, these are our state assessment results from this most recent assessment administration, so this past spring. You can see that for math, which is the image on the left, this is a breakdown of the grade levels 3 through 8, which are the ones taking the New Hampshire State Assessment. And we have, for these grade levels, we had an average of 81 participation rate, 81%. Normally we are 95% or higher, but because of the remote option not having an ability to test and many students choosing either fully remote or homeschool, we did not have normal participation rates. This was the case across the state, however. So the DOE did request a waiver about the participation rate, and so we're not getting dinged for that, so to speak. As you can see with our levels of math, grades, we're not as high as we want to be. From 2019 to 2021, and you're not seeing it here, but I'm just letting you know, grades 5 through 8 decreased an average of 6% of students meeting proficiency or being above proficient. Grades 3 through and 4 actually had increases. In ELA, which is on the right, you'll see that they are slightly higher, our levels of proficiency and above, which are denoted by the green and the blue. They're slightly higher than math, but they're still not as high as we would like to see. Between the last quote-unquote normal year of testing in 2019 and 2021, grades 3 through 7 decreased an average of 4.5% of students meeting proficiency. Grade 8 did increase, however, which is a bright spot. The other interesting piece is that over the years, since the first administration of the Smarter Balance test, which preceded the New Hampshire State Assessment, the New Hampshire SAS, we have seen about a 7% decrease in students who are proficient in ELA across the board. So in looking at some of these trends, granted we're looking at different tests, but that is a significant amount, especially considering that Smarter Balanced it was a longer test, a more difficult test, and had more components to it. So to see a decrease is something that we would like to address. Our 10th and 11th graders, instead of taking the New Hampshire State Assessment, they take this PSAT and the SAT. You can see here the results from last year. It's a little bit concerning. Normally, we are below the New Hampshire state average, but higher than the U.S. average. At the 10th grade level, we were not, and I don't know why. There were a lot of factors obviously going on in the past couple of years, and we're hoping to see this as a true anomaly. I was just getting to it. As with the grades 3 through 8 tests, this is also representing less than our normal 95% or higher participation rate. Our PSAT participation rate last year was 75%, and our SAT participation rate was 77%. So again, this is giving us valuable data, but it is also an incomplete picture, given that there was, a good quarter of our students who did not take the test. Over the next 3 slides, you'll just see some cohort trends. When you look at that information from the past couple of slides, you're looking at sort of the overall picture. But what's really good is to look at some of those trends that are happening from year to year in any given cohort, so any given graduating class. So you can see here everything from the current grade 12 through the current grade 9, and on the next slides you'll see the current grade 7 and 8 students because they have enough data to actually show some of their trends. Here you're looking at English language arts, and you can see it's holding steady a little bit. In some cases you'll see them going down, in some cases you'll see them going up, but we are hovering 60% or below, and we would like to see that go up. And Karen, if you click, this is showing grades 7 and 8. The ELA is on the bottom for both of these, and then math is above. Our current 7th grade class has only taken the New Hampshire State SAS. They never took the Smarter Balances test, so you are seeing only one type of test and the same test for those particular students. And then here are our math cohort trends for our current 12th, 11th, 10th, and 9th graders. Typically, we see a math dip in grade 4. In some respects, this is at that grade level, there is a shift to more abstract concepts, and so it is a little bit of a shift for our students. It coincides also with a physical shift in many of our buildings. So, for example, at Carpenter, there is a shift to an entirely new school building. And in many of our K through 6 buildings, there's also a physical shift to a different wing of the building. Does that have anything to do with it? I don't know without further research, but it is something that's happening at grade 4, and that is a unique thing. And then one more conjecture about sort of the grade 4 dip is that we do a very good job of introducing our 3rd graders. They are the first group to take the state assessment, to having them practice the test, to really giving them a deep overview of the different features and tools of the test. And then that might fall off a little bit at grade 4 because that's not their first year testing. And so there might be a little bit of a slide there as well. But grade 4 is something that we're definitely looking at to continue watching that trend and addressing it. So these scores are not what we would like them to be. They're not the lowest in the state, but they're not where we want them to be. And so we are doing several things to address this. One of the biggest pieces, and I know that Kathy has spoken to the board about this, is that we have contracted with New Hampshire Learning Initiative, or NHLI, to do a huge undertaking around curriculum and assessment. Around the curriculum lens, we have grade levels who will be working this year, over the summer, and throughout next year at really looking at refining their competencies. Also looking at what does it mean to be proficient in a competency, and making sure that 1 aligns to the standards, and 2, that there's a common understanding of what that means, whether you're a teacher in Effingham, a teacher in New Durham, or somewhere in between. So really, curriculum scales or proficiency scales. They are doing a lot of assessment work with us over the next 2 years as well. That is focused on really some assessment literacy about what does it mean to have a balanced, meaningful assessment system. What does summative assessment mean? What does formative assessment mean? What does a performance task mean? And how do these pieces work together to create a balanced assessment system? This means making sure that our assessments are aligned with our competencies. Are we actually assessing what we want to assess and what students will be assessed on at the state test, which are aligned to the state standards? So that is a large undertaking. And then some of the ancillary work with New Hampshire, well, it's not ancillary, but not so much the focus of this, is looking at alternative pathways at the high school and even a little bit starting at the middle school level. for students to demonstrate competency, and looking at a portrait of a graduate or a portrait of a learner, which is what it's called now, which will be done later in this implementation plan, and that will be coming later. We have continued to prioritize competencies for all K through 8 subject areas, and as the high school basically goes down and does their curriculum work, they'll be hopefully looking at some of their prioritized competencies as well. Again, really focusing on what is key for our students to learn, and then what's secondary. We are fortunate to have math coaches in all buildings this year, actually the next 2 years. And at the high school, we have a curriculum project manager to help guide that work. But it's been really nice to have those math coaches in place because they are the ones who can be in the classrooms on a day-to-day and week-to-week basis and really provide some of that in-time support to teachers. Another huge piece is math and literacy professional development. We have done quite a bit of math professional development over the past couple of years with our math coach, who's now coaching our math coaches who are on site. But especially seeing the literacy dips over the past couple of years, and in talking to teachers and saying, listening to what are they experiencing in the classroom when kids come to them, we're looking at some literacy professional development, really looking at how do people learn how to read, and how do we as teachers really harness that so that regardless of the program we have in place, teachers have a deep understanding of the reading learning process. So that will be put in place. And then one of the big pieces is the implementation of ExactPath, which is K through 12, and Courseware, which is 9 through 12, and they are both under the same parent company. But ExactPath is really replacing what we used to have as NEWA. NEWA had a lot of great features. It provided teachers with a lot of data to the point where it was almost too much data, but not that next step of what do we do with it. Yes, Charlene asked what the acronym for NEWA was, Northwest Evaluation Association. You're welcome. So ExactPath provides benchmarking, so a diagnostic essentially at different points in the year for K through 12 students, although we are only assessing grades 1 through 12 in math and reading. And what it does is it not only gives us that sort of idea of where students are in their learning, but it actually, and what's really key and what teachers like, is it creates a personalized learning pathway for each student so that it can help to address skill deficiencies or skill gaps. And I'll actually show that on the next slide. So this is our ExactPath testing data from this past fall. These are grades 1 through 8 on this slide. And rather than being shown as sort of proficient versus not proficient, the red is not on track to meet end-of-year grade level expectations. So very similar to NEWA, ExactPath is an adaptive assessment. So as a 6th grader, you are getting, you're being presented with 6th grade questions, and depending on how you answer them, it's going to adjust them within that grade level, above that grade level, or below that grade level. And so given that we took it in the fall and students are being assessed on grade level standards, it's very likely that they won't meet all of them, but are they on track? That's the goal, is are they on track to meet those standards at this point in the year? And so you can see that by and large, at this point, we're not on track to meet end-of-year grade level expectations, but we anticipated that, knowing what we've been experiencing in the past couple of years, and the fact that in a normal year, quote-unquote normal year, there are always going to be certain gaps. We want to make sure that the gaps are not as low as this, however. So you can see math and reading, these are our diagnostic results. For the next slide, at the high school level, because high schoolers don't have necessarily grade level proficiency, students can take different tracks. You have some 10th graders, for example, who are taking geometry, others who are taking algebra. It's harder to say that there's a certain set of standards for any one grade level at the high school level. So because of that, they are measured with national percentile ranks. And a national percentile rank is a student's, it basically tells you the percent of peers that the student scored higher than nationally. So for example, if I'm a ninth grader and my NPR, my national percentile rank is 78, it means that I have scored higher than 78% of other ninth graders nationally. So you can see these numbers are actually pretty deep. I mean, they're not glowing, but they're not as low as I think we anticipated. So it means that there are still gaps, but they're not, we can overcome them. And finally, the really, really key piece to Exact Path that teachers who piloted really, really liked and what they were looking for was this learning path piece. And this is to help us address some of the skill gaps that have happened because of COVID and even outside of COVID. So what you're looking at is a random selection of third graders from across the district. This includes special education students. It includes students who last year were homeschooled and last year students who were in a fully remote track. So it covers them all. But if you look at this, and you can hopefully click once, or maybe not. Yes. So you'll see that students, this is third grade, and you probably can't see it, but the skills above are broken out into grade levels. So almost dead center, but slightly to the left, you'll see that is showing second grade, and then the skills to the right of that are second grade skills numbered and divided into different strands. Some of them are geometry, some of them are measurement skills, some of them have to do with algebra, or algebraic expressions. But you can see that below, if they have the green striped box, it means that a student assessed above on those different skills. So this is showing you kind of a span over first and second grade skills. And as a third grade class, we're not surprised that there are going to be gaps in the grade levels right below. But students, and you can see highlighted in the pink box, as they work on these particular skills that based on their diagnostic, it was showing that they needed some additional support in this skill, they earn trophies. And the teacher, we're looking at a teacher view, can see that as well. Karen, if you would click again, please. Highlighted in the purple boxes, when you start to see, this is basically a color map or a heat map, you can see students who are struggling with any given skill. So if they have failed, a skill once, you'll see on the purple box that is furthest to the right, this signal for failed once might be something for the teacher to keep an eye on. When you get to the box, the red box with the X or the orange exclamation mark, this is showing a teacher that, you know what, I might need to step in and give them some like one-on-one support. And teachers have the ability to step in and do this even before you even get to this point. If you, for example, or a teacher has several students who are missing one particular skill, they might choose to do an in-person, in-class remediation in a small group during a math center time. So it provides a lot of information as teachers can click into some of those specific skills where they're seeing students are struggling, and they can get some specific ideas that they can use in the classroom, resources, lessons, video tutorials. So it does provide a lot. And if you click one more time, Karen, thank you. These orange boxes, there's a lot of data here in the fact even that there's not much data there. But these are areas that these are third grade students. Those skills that are highlighted in the orange boxes were skills that were secondary competencies. So it's not surprising that you have most students not meeting those or needing support in those areas, because we know that they were not able to get to them during the year and a half where we were in the midst of the pandemic. So there's a lot of data even when you don't necessarily see the data there, or you don't see clear, this is why. But this is going to hopefully really help teachers as they're trying to address the variety of skill gaps that students have and are coming back to us with. And one way that we're addressing it. So it's a process. I mean, there's a lot of pieces in place. There's a lot of pieces that we still need to do. The work with NHLI is going to take several years, and it's a process. It's going to be hopefully done thoughtfully, and we're hoping that with these pieces in place, we'll be able to see improvements. Questions?
Katie? I want to thank you for the presentation, and I just have a few comments about this. The results that you're seeing tonight are not results that anyone is satisfied with. And 3 years ago, we embarked on a systems change project for curriculum. However, then the pandemic came. And if there's any silver lining to the pandemic, it's that we do have the ESSER money. And the ESSER money has allowed us to push this project forward more quickly than we would have been able to do otherwise. We just wouldn't have had the resources to have math coaches in every school, to have a curriculum specialist, to have consultants coming in from the state. So with all of these interventions, it's a 3 to 5 year project, but I'm really confident that from a systemic point of view, we can help our students achieve at much higher levels. So, thank you, Katie.
Yeah, well said.
So,
I won't scream now. I would just say, or kind of ask, for
Oh, just get closer to the mic.
Oh, get closer. Thank you, Jack. Due to the substantial absences that are continuing to happen with the faculty and the students, for me, this is all great. But, let's be brutally honest. This is another year that we're struggling to even implement some of this stuff in an effective manner due to the sheer absences of staff and the large number of job openings that we have in general. So again, this is great, and I sit here and say, yes, systemically, but we're not hitting the kids for 3 to 5 years. So we may hit the 4th and 3rd graders that are sitting here struggling, but we're not hitting these kids. I just want to say that honestly, so, that's sad. And for us as a country, not just Wolfeboro, but, and I think we are headed in the right direction. And I think the district is lucky that we have the funds, but, it's a systemic national problem, not just Wolfeboro.
Yes, and we actually in academic affairs were asking, what have people said about how long this will take to close some of these gaps or to get back to the quote unquote normal? And there's no real answer to that. The optimists will say 1 to 2 years. The people who are probably more realistic are saying 4 to 5 years, and hopefully we can be, it's shorter than 4 to 5 years, but the impacts aren't over. You're right.
thank you, Katie.
You're welcome.
And next up is Jack.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the basketball request, Kingswood High School.
I'm sorry.
No, it's a basketball.
I skipped an item.
That's right. They're all here, so we should talk about that.
Yes, thank you, Jack. I have a letter here from the Kingswood Boys and Girls Basketball Team. The Kingswood Boys and Girls Basketball Team respectfully request a mask exemption to school policy during the winter basketball season. Currently, we are one of the few schools that is required to wear a mask while actively playing in games. To promote fair play and equal competition, we are asking for athletes to forego the mask mandate while specifically playing on the court during a game against another team and in practice scrimmages. In all other instances in practices and game, players will continue to wear masks as we currently are. If we are playing an opponent that is required to wear masks during a game, we shall conform and also be required to wear masks. We understand the complexities and the difficulties of any exemption, to any school policies, but we strongly feel this is in the best interest of our student athletes. If you have any further questions or concerns, please feel free to contact us. But I think that we maybe have some people here that may want to address this, and it's on the agenda, so that would be appropriate if anybody wants to. Surprise?
Let me bring the hand. This, yeah. That one, please. Thank you.
Basically, the letter you have in front of you is what the girls and the boys have come up with. And, again, we understand the complexities of making any kind of exemption. But we played a scrimmage this weekend up at Kennett. We were the only team that did wear masks, and it is very difficult for the kiddos to keep up, especially later in the game as the game goes on. So that's where we're at. If you have any questions, we feel it's pretty direct and simple explanation of what we're asking for.
Any of the students want to speak? It's okay. They don't have to.
I think you covered it, but
okay. Okay. Anyone else want to speak? Okay. Input from the board members. Jim.
Hear me up. There we go. Thank you for the board. This is very collective. All right. I will not move. We can certainly understand the request. All right, we're beaten by the technology once again. Certainly understand the nature of the request, and as we speak of this today, anybody who's been following the news is aware that New Hampshire is now #1 in terms of the per capita rate of infections. And also that Carroll, Belknap, and Sullivan counties are the #1 counties in our state. So we are in a situation where the infection rates are higher than they ever have been since the beginning of the pandemic. We lead the nation, and so it's an unfortunate time to be talking about pulling back on mitigation practices. And despite some statements to the contrary, masks are very effective at controlling aerosol spread. And, they're a tool we have. Now, a question I have is there any awareness of how many students may currently be vaccinated? Any idea of that? Oh, do I have your microphone?
I'm not aware how many students, athletes are vaccinated or not vaccinated. That's not something that I felt was appropriate to be asking, to be quite honest with you.
Sure. Yeah. No, that's understandable. And I'm afraid that we're going to start seeing other schools perhaps going into enhanced mitigation, i.e. These folks who are not wearing masks currently while in sports may reinstitute that. So I'm just wondering if we're moving across purposes here, and that we might be a little premature in terms of making these masks go away currently.
Just talking, Joe Farragher, varsity boys basketball coach. I appreciate taking the time here tonight. Hopeful the practice the guys just gave up for some civic responsibility and get involved here. We'll appreciate all the running we didn't have to do tonight with the mask on. Mr. Pittman, I hear what you're saying there, and I think the opportunity to go to more extreme measures later on is a possibility as well. We're one of 3 schools in Division II right now that are requiring masks while playing. And I think as the athletic department, and I don't want to misspeak for Mr. House or whatnot, but we could also look at potential additional waivers to reduce liability options as well. Players who would like to wear masks as well still have that option. It's not required not to wear a mask. Something I think we could look into as well, though.
Thank you. Charlene, let me bring it right down. Hang on a second.
Okay. I just had a question. What was our policy that we implemented last year? As I recall, we required masks to be worn by all sports participants, except then when then if I remember correctly, we said that outdoor sports did not require masks. But my recollection is that indoor sports, we decided, we voted require masks. And the reason I'm asking the question is because it seems as if even with all the vaccinations, looking at the rise in cases across the state and particularly in this county, it almost seems to me as if we're in a worse situation than we were back last winter. And I mean, I personally, I think I could be okay with allowing a waiver with the understanding that every single participant on both teams needed to be fully vaccinated. And even though, you know, that, as we know now with Omicron and Delta, there are breakthrough cases. But as far as I'm concerned, the primary responsibility of the board, and I have to thank all of you for being here to understand how we deliberate and you know, what our thought processes are. It seems to me that our primary function is to provide a safe learning environment for all of our students. And I don't think now is the time to take away a mitigation factor, because, you know, if all of our participants are vaccinated and that can be verified, there's no guarantee that all the students they're playing who aren't wearing masks are fully vaccinated. So I am opposed to granting the waiver at this point in time, as long as we are still in the substantial to high transmissivity, which I believe we are, if I'm not mistaken.
Anyone else on this end? Alan?
I just have to say that I disagree with the vaccination, checking if athletes are vaccinated or not. I don't think that, personally, as a student athlete, I think that's singling and punishing certain students that aren't vaccinated due if their parents don't want them to be or not. And from a student athlete perspective of having to wear a mask during a season when I played outside, it was extremely difficult personally for me to breathe sometimes. And I'm sure as for basketball in a very hot gym, it's excruciatingly hot as well. So I would just like the board to consider that, because basketball, they're running up and down the court, it's hot in there, and that's something to consider, I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Fallon.
I also feel like it's the only one out of the only 2 teams wearing masks. The people that we do play don't really wear their mask at all, even though they're supposed to. 5 minutes in, we're the only team that has them mostly on, and our coaches are always reminding us of that, like, wear your mask, think of others. So I really think we should take into careful consideration that, because it is really hot. We only get so many breaks. We're working as hard as we can to win for a school and for our coaches who put in lots of time and effort. So I'd really, really like it if you guys would carefully consider before you just say no. I know it's a scary time for everyone, but thank you for your consideration.
Just have one more piece. Just personal thought. There was a nationally televised high school basketball game on ESPN the other night, and it was in LA County, where I believe there's a mask mandate, and the players were wearing their masks, and I'm not specifically aware of that school's policy. They're wearing their masks as chin straps. And I think of a word about optics, from enhancing mitigation effects to try to keep everyone safe. Take into effect the optics as well. Are we more concerned with the optics of saying that masks are optional and students being able to wear them, or are we more concerned with masks being required and students wearing them as an accessory around their neck, below their nose, below their mouth? Just something to consider. Thank you.
Jim.
Excellent. Thank you. I appreciate that observation, and I know that the new Oxford English Dictionary will introduce the word chin diaper as a result of that practice. So it's an unfortunate development. Question for these folks. Let's just say the board decided, well, let's give this a try. Let's see how this works out. But then let's say, unfortunately, we have an exposure. Someone gets sick who's involved in one of these games. Would a response to that be, oh, well, now we're going to have to require that the team go back to full masks for a period of time, let's say 10 days, 14 days, something of that nature? If that were a condition for implementing this particular proposal, how would folks feel about that?
The athletic department has protocols in place, I think, already. I think we'd be open to ideas to make this work the best possible way for everyone, whether it's working with their safety council, Alex Bre, our trainer, and school board, any representatives, student athletes, however we can make this work. We're open for ideas to make it work.
One of the interesting things I find in your letter, and this is kind of where I'm coming down on this, the last line of your first paragraph says, if we are playing an opponent that is required to wear masks during a game, we shall conform and also be required to wear a mask, which is exactly what our policy states here. If we require masks, any team coming to play us also has to would be required to wear a mask. So you're willing to wear masks at another school, but you don't want to wear masks when you're on the court here. And I'm a little confused about that. You're going to wear masks at other schools if they require it. But
if the exemption is granted and there's another school that we have to play that they have to wear a mask, well, obviously we'll wear a mask. Well, so it's equal.
Well, even if we're not, if we don't grant an exemption, you're going to wear a mask at the other school if they require it. So if we don't grant the exception and a team comes here, they have to wear masks as well.
If there is no exemption granted, we're still going to conform to the present policy and wear a mask.
Correct.
What is this, 3 games maybe on this job? I mean, because you said how many teams are in the division, and you said 3 of the teams require masks, and if they're home, they have to wear them here on our property, and if you're away, you're asking for a leeway to not wear them, so we're talking, 1 or 2 games? That's how I'm taking that.
We have an 18-game schedule, so I don't remember top off my head, but probably 8 or 9 away games we're looking at, plus a holiday.
Yeah, but you said some of those schools require mask mandates.
Correct. We're one of 3 as of, I don't know the current,
Right.
Pelham and Kennan, I believe, being the other 2.
So how many in that rotation, like how many
I think we'd play them 3 total.
away? So we would
one
be,
away.
our team would be required to wear them here, and then at Kennett or wherever, So the rest of the roster, what you're saying is the away games, our kids wouldn't, you're asking for waivers for those away games.
Yeah, so for example, if we went to a school that didn't have a mask policy, their players would not be wearing masks. We would be required, so we're asking for an exemption. If we were to go there, we have the option.
Correct. So, but when they came here, they would have to wear them.
Correct.
If we didn't grant a
If there
waiver.
was,
Correct. I'm just trying to think of how many times would that happen, but you don't really know. I'm just trying to see how many, the deduct, because you said there's some.
Let's see if this one's going to work down here.
Maybe I shouldn't touch it. I don't want to jinx it. Okay, I won't touch it. Well, one question I have, and one of my daughters played basketball. She played AAU from a young age, and then played varsity basketball here at Kingswood. So I understand perfectly well the extreme athleticism and the cardiovascular training that's required to be able to play basketball and run up and down the court, a gazillion times. One of the things that I struggle with is the fact that, there's a reason that school sports are considered extracurricular, and I believe in school sports. I think I have 3 children who were involved in school sports, but we have to look at unintended consequences. And whenever you all, if we grant the waiver, whenever you all are not wearing masks at an away game where the school does not require their athletes to wear masks, it's just common sense to realize that the chance of infection increases because of not wearing the masks. And so what would happen is if, one of our athletes brought back COVID from one of these extracurricular occasions, then what that would do is require, the entire team to go into quarantine, the coaches to go into quarantine. And not only that, but there would be enough of a lag time before we discovered that, that student athlete had contracted COVID. In the meantime, they would be exposing other students, and okay. I don't think I broke it, I promise. And so, the whole thing we're trying to do is keep our students in school. And because of, talking about the idea of it's hard to breathe and you can't catch your breath and whatnot, when we were going through a lot of these discussions over a year ago, it was pointed out to us a study on soccer, and that adequately. Oh, okay. Well, it must be my magnetism. So it seems to me that, if soccer players that are adequately trained and conditioned haven't shown a demonstrable drop in their ability, I would think that we could extrapolate that to perhaps, basketball. And I just worry about, in this effort to maximize a sports performance, we're losing sight of the more important issue, which is keeping our kids in school. And no one wants to have, their students have to be quarantined and out of school. No one wants to have staff members have to be quarantined and out of school. Or heaven forbid, someone who's at a higher risk contracts COVID and is, possibly, even now as we speak, on a ventilator fighting for her life. So I really have a hard time with making a sports performance more important than the function of education. And that's one of the things I struggle with.
Okay, any more comments? If not, I'm going to call the question. Yeah. Okay. Come on down if you want to speak.
Thank you. Do you mind? Thank you. Hi. I didn't intend to speak tonight, but my name's Amy Johnson. I'm a school nurse in Effingham. I tend to get nervous in front of people, so I apologize. I just wanted to clarify the quarantining, just to make sure we're all, because it's been very confusing for all of us, hasn't it, to keep up with it, even us school nurses. But I just wanted to make sure we understood that if somebody were to contract COVID, that the rest of the team would not go under quarantine. Only household contacts would be going under quarantine. So just to make sure that that's understood. And what would happen actually in that case would be the whole team would be told that if they were considered contacts, then they would have to wear a mask for 14 days. So that probably, I would assume, would be implemented in this scenario. If one of our students were to contract COVID, the rest of the team would probably have to wear their mask for 14 days, which would be an interesting possibility in looking at. And just as an aside, while I'm here saying that, just as a school nurse, it's very hard for me to imagine running at full pace with a mask on. It's just, I don't know if you have tried it. For me, 44 years old, when I go on a run, if I were to go on a run, the last thing I would want to do is impede my ability to breathe. I know with asthmatics at school, the first thing I say, anytime I assess a student, I say, take your mask off so I can fully see your face so I know what's going on. And especially with an asthmatic or somebody in, just in the athletic program. So thank you.
You want to speak? Go ahead.
Yes, sir. I have been playing soccer for 4 years, and I don't think a fair comparison can be done between soccer and basketball, as I do play both. And I do find soccer easier. You only have so many certain things you can do. Don't touch the ball with your hands, main rule. Basketball, there's a lot more. As a guard, you need to do more. You're not just running back and forth. You're passing to your teammates. You're communicating. And with a mask on and running back and forth and coming off a soccer season, I do find myself that I'm not in bad shape, but with a mask on and doing that while on a basketball court, it is shorter. I do run just about the same time or about the same distance, and it's still hard. So the comparison between soccer and basketball is not a fair comparison to be able to do, in my opinion, fairly, who's been playing for a certain amount of time. So,
okay, thank you. Okay, I think the way we're going to form the question then is, are you willing to grant a waiver for masks while the students are on the basketball court? And the vote will be yes, that you're willing to grant the waiver, no, that you're not willing to grant the waiver. I think that's the simplest way to do it. So any comments before we take that vote? Dr. Jim?
Now, is this without any of the conditions that we just tried to establish between Jim and the school nurse from Effingham? Because I can support that. If we go with the concept that if someone is exposed and contracts it, we have to revert back to masks. I could deal with it. I could do that question done that way. But without that, I'd have to say no.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Just wondering how many games we're talking about left to be played.
Well, that's what I'm saying. He said 18 games.
18?
But they're not all, they're not all away. And so if you're saying you want the exception for home, yeah. I just want to be clear, they want the exception for all or just away? For all.
would be for all games, and it'd be specifically for the players on the court. Coaches on the bench and players on the bench would be wearing masks. So Fallon's asking if we're on the sidelines or in the locker room, and yes, we would still be players. Coaches, like myself, would be wearing them on the sidelines. Players on the bench area, we'd be wearing them pregame. Once we were at competition, players on the court, those would be the players that would not be wearing a mask. When they come off the court, mask would be back on.
Okay, so the exemption again is for exemption for the players on the court to not wear masks. Yeah, I think, and we just have to, make sure that's clear, and that's also a change basing in our mask policy district-wide, obviously. This is specifically for basketball, but it's an exemption for, that could lead to other exemptions, obviously.
Like theater, they're the same thing. How can you do that to give that the kids in theater that is having their mask for?
Yeah, all right, yeah, so anyway.
Well, I want to just make sure Wendy's comment was clear, because I enjoyed 2 performances of Mamma Mia, and all of the students who were performing wore clear face masks. And I think that it's important for us to be consistent in our policy. And I want to thank Amy, I didn't catch your last name, but I want to thank you for letting me know that I truly was not aware that if there's a positive COVID case, that none of the people in close contact had to quarantine. Is that new? I know at one point.
Kathy has a little clarification, I think.
Okay, that would be great, because I was absolutely not aware that close contacts did not have to quarantine.
Okay, thanks. Okay, Amy, I think there was one piece that was left out there. If it's determined that the kids are close contacts and they're not vaccinated, in that case, they could be required to quarantine. If they're considered if there's they would be considered like a household contact. Do you see what I'm saying?
Okay, can you hear me? Yeah, I know it is so confusing, but it is a definite rule. If you are in a house, okay, and you've been vaccinated, then you would be able to go out of your house and go with normal activity wearing a mask for 14 days. If you are not a household contact, it doesn't matter if you're vaccinated or not. If you're not a household contact.
The only thing I want to add to that is that in my conversations with DHHS, they said that certain situations could be considered like a household contact, and there could be a requirement to quarantine. So
yes, I think what you're referring to, I've read about as well, is if you were having a sleepover, that would be a household contact. If you sleep in the same house, like literally, it doesn't matter if you live with them or have a sleepover.
Or
maybe you know something I don't know.
Prolonged contact in the same car, that sort of thing. So whether this would be considered that or not, I don't know, but I just wanted to make sure that that piece didn't get lost.
Okay. Kathy, that is news to me, but it could be true. I mean, I'm not doubting you. I just hadn't heard that before, and I haven't run into that before.
Well, you'd have to call DHHS for their advice. That's what they're saying.
Okay, yeah, sure. I'm not sure that would come to play though in basketball. I wouldn't anticipate that.
It may not.
Yeah.
It may not, Amy. I'm not saying that it would. I just didn't want to lose that piece of if
Sure.
you're not vaccinated.
Sure, I just don't want to muddy the waters for this specific situation. I do not foresee that being an issue. Thanks.
But if I could just follow up on that. I think you said if people are fully vaccinated, vaccinated, correct?
I think she said that it didn't matter whether they're vaccinated or not.
Yeah, at this point in time, we are not monitoring students and whether they are vaccinated or not. In my opinion, we should not do that. That's a private matter. I, for one, do not feel comfortable with my own children getting vaccinated, and I have physicians that are explaining that to me. So there's so many different sides of this. I don't think this is all black and white. I think mitigation measures need to happen. Masks need to happen because we're in a substantial situation. But I think in terms of being on the basketball court literally for that, however long that game is, I don't even know how many minutes it is, I think it's more important that our kids can breathe. I think that would be my thought on it. But in terms of vaccinated, doesn't matter whether they're vaccinated or not.
Okay, any other comments? All the other ways we're going to vote. Okay, I'd entertain a motion first because somebody has to obviously make a motion to grant a waiver for the basketball players on the court not to wear masks. That would be the motion. During active play, yes. For this season only. Now, that would be the motion that's on the floor. And then a yes would be to grant the waiver, a no would be to not grant the waiver. Well, that's a good question. I think if we grant the waiver, it's got to be any basketball teams, whether it be middle school, high school. I got a comment from someone this morning that there's an elementary school basketball program being started, and
That's what I was just saying, like, this isn't just high school, if it's district, I mean, we cannot do for this one school and not do for all the sending towns, no way. Can you repeat the comment?
I'm sorry, hang on.
No, sorry. I just was saying, we're a district school. We cannot make this one policy for the varsity. We have to make it for the entire district, and it's all the sending towns, all the elementary, the junior high school. Can't just be for just these teams. And I'm just want to say it impacts everyone, not just this.
Yeah, I think what's coming out of this is we also have a lot of rec programs that are starting up for elementary school children and middle school children as well. And this whatever we grant today would have to count toward them, because right now all of the rec programs across the district require masks in the buildings, regardless of whether you're playing or not playing. So this vote is going to have to be all-encompassing of all basketball programs for this season, regardless of what the age group is. Go ahead. There you go.
We're not worried about Parks and Rec outside of the school right now, so if clarify, it could be the high school and middle school programs.
Well, yeah, I understand that, but if we grant the exemption there, I actually had a request this morning from the Parks and Rec Department about the same thing. So whether we vote on yours and then come back and vote on theirs, we can't have two policies for the same program.
Is it a separate entity outside?
It really doesn't matter. You're in our buildings, and right now our policy in the buildings is you wear a mask in our buildings, under all circumstances. This would be an exemption from that, and if we make an exemption for one, we're going to have to make an exemption for another. We can't discriminate against one team or another. If it's basketball, it's basketball, whether it's a younger kid playing on a rec team or an older child playing on a high school team. We can't discriminate against, just because of the age or which group is playing in our buildings.
All right, I have a thought I want to keep to myself. Thank you.
Don't, wait until you get a mic if you. This is just strictly basketball. Hang on just a second. Okay, I think we have to take a vote on this and kind of move forward unless there's some other comments by board members. Well, I'm looking for a motion right now to grant a waiver for basketball across the district. It has to be across the district because of what I said before. It doesn't matter what program it is. If we're going to grant an exemption for masks for basketball, it has to cover basketball for all age groups that are playing basketball. We can't discriminate against age groups or whether it be a school program or an outside program. If they're using our facilities, we have to be consistent within our facilities. So the motion should be, do we grant an exemption for masks while players are actively participating on the basketball court during this basketball season? Okay, it's been moved by Jim Pittman, seconded by Wendy. Okay, and again, a yes vote is to grant the exemption. A no vote is no, you're not going to grant the exemption. Okay, we're going to take a roll call vote then. Tim? Wendy? Yes. Dr. Jim? Yes. Jim Pittman?
Yes.
Charlene? No. Dana? And chair votes yes too. So we'll grant the exemption for basketball only for the season. By the way, thank you all for coming and listening through the process. Appreciate it, and good luck during your season.
All right. Mr. Chairman, may I request that we have a 5-minute recess as this meeting is going very long. Some folks might appreciate taking a bathroom break or something of that nature.
Thank you. We'll take a 5-minute recess. We do have the budget presentation next, which will be a little lengthy, so probably a break is a good time. Thank you.
But yeah.
Okay, I think we can get started.
Okay, Jack, I think everybody seems ready.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, we're going to do the budget presentation now, and I'm going to do it from here so I can see what's on the screen and make sure I'm following with where I am on my sheet. So the Finance Committee is made up of myself, Stephanie King, Dr. James Manning, and Jim Pittman. So we're going to start the budget presentation with the ESSER funds. First of all, what are ESSER funds? How can they be used? What's the difference between ESSER 1, 2, and 3? What priorities has the district set? How does ESSER money impact the budgeting process? And can ESSER funds be used to lower the tax rate? I'd like to start with an overview of the ESSER funds, also known as Elementary and Second School Emergency Relief Funds. They are COVID-related emergency funds from the federal government to help reopen and keep schools open across the nation. The funds must be used for activities and projects that are related to COVID and acceptable under the grant guidelines. These grants and the specific grant activities were discussed extensively at the June 7th, 2021 school board meeting. Priorities were established for use of these funds. Here are the priorities we set. First, student safety and well-being. Next, addressing learning loss and improving student achievement. And third, to look at enhancing our HVA system for student health and safety as an investment in our schools that will defray costs down the road. The funds are available in 3 phases. ESSER 1, or the COVID Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, or CARES Act, was the first phase of the funding. These funds were to purchase personal protective equipment, plexiglass, Chromebooks, software for remote instruction and meetings, cleaning supplies, tuition for remote learning programs, and nursing services. The total amount of the grant was $539,307.27. All of the money is allocated with the exception of $40,000, which will be allocated for projects related to improving student achievement. ESSER 2, or the Corona Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act. Funds have been devoted to increasing the academic achievement of our students. The administrators have been working to do this. Katie, our curriculum director, explained many of these efforts tonight. The funds and resources available through this grant will help schools achieve this in a shorter period of time, what would have taken many years to achieve. Included in this grant is work under the umbrella of the New Hampshire Learning Institute, including consultation and professional development for teachers. As a part of this, we have a 2-year math position, which Katie mentioned before, in each of the schools, and a curriculum project manager at the high school. A social and emotional learning resources, additional reading materials, funds for more extensive summer programming, and for an after-school tutoring and transportation. All of these expenses are calculated for a 2-year period. The total of the grant is $2,929,158.41. $423,113 remains unallocated and will be available for additional services to students. ESSER 3, or the American Rescue Plan, is the 3rd phase and the largest amount of money. This is where the 3rd priority of the school board comes into play. The ESSER 3 grant is the largest amount of grant money, $6,576,227.83, and must be expended by the end of 2024. The grant guideline expressly identifies heating, ventilation, and cooling systems as supported activities. Consideration of the putting of money into our buildings will save us the cost of incurring additional costs down the road to upgrade these systems. To provide public input on the use of these funds, go to the Governor Wentworth GWRSD website, where you will find the ESSER grants and an email for public input. It is important for the public to know that the grants cannot be used to lower the tax rate. The federal government requires that in order to receive these funds, we are not disproportionately reducing state and local per pupil costs in schools, and that the district is not disproportionately reducing the number of full-time staff per pupil in high-need classified schools. These grants are more complex than any typical grants and have a variety of requirements imposed by the federal government, including formulas to ensure we are following the guidelines. There is some flexibility during the grant period to modify the grant activities. For example, if an activity results in some leftover funds, those can also be reallocated. However, any unspent funds must be returned to the federal government. Now we can move into the budget process. There are many, many steps that go into the budget process. The budget preparation begins in October with staff members in each school providing the school principal with their budgetary needs. Each administrator submits a budget to the SAU office. The business administrator and the superintendent of schools meet with each school leader to discuss the requests. If there is a large increase in an individual budget, unless there is a special circumstance or a very well justified rationale, the administrator is asked to review the budget and reduce it while keeping priorities intact. If any increase remains that does not have a strong justification, a second cut may occur. Personnel requests are made at the same time. Requests for positions may or may not proceed to the Finance Committee. Depending on the strength of the rationale outlining the need for the position, this year we discussed reductions in positions rather than additions. Public meetings in November to discuss the budget this year were held on November 16th, 17th, and 18th, as discussed before. Following these meetings, additional cuts were made in order to lower the budget further. After tonight, there will be 2 more opportunities to hear about the budget. At the January 10th board meeting, when the budget is adopted, and at the deliberative session on February 5th at 10 a.m. Although total enrollment is for the most part stable, there are some changes in enrollment at some of the schools. Last year's total enrollment was 2,112. This year's is 2,107. The high school enrollment is lower than it was last year. However, the incoming classes over the next 2 years will likely bring that number back up. Ossipee increased by 19 students, and New Durham also increased by 19 students. The largest decrease was at Crescent Lake with 36 fewer students, and we saw a decrease last year in kindergarten enrollment at Carpenter. We expected to see an increase this year, but did not. This was factored into some staffing decisions, which we will be discussing. It is unclear if we will see higher enrollment numbers once we are no longer in the middle of a pandemic. Under the general fund, schools are labor-intensive organizations, and wages make up approximately 75% of the budget. The increase in wages in this budget is less than 0.5%. This includes 2 new paraeducator positions required by the individual education plans for students with disabilities. It also includes a 30% special education teaching position in Effingham in order to meet the needs of the special education students. Even with these additions, The increase is small because we are eliminating 2 teaching positions in the schools that have had a drop in student numbers. Class sizes will still be well below the state recommendations in both schools. The positions will be reduced through attrition as we have 2 retirements. The wage line does not include the Governor Wentworth Support Staff Collective Bargaining Agreement or the Governor Wentworth Administrators Collective Bargaining Agreement. These will be presented in warrant articles and are addressed later in this presentation. The largest increases are increases that we have no control over. Health insurance is the largest increase at $656,226, or 7.25%, mainly due to high medical claims, and $210,000 for the retirement system, or 4.56%. Next slide. Yeah. The decreases you see in these lines are the result of our administrators scouring through each school's expenses to cut back where they could. Items related to building and maintenance were also reviewed and cut back to offset the repairs and maintenance list that needs to be attended to in this year's addition to the capital improvement list. The work that our IT department did to run cable to bring the voice over IP system is paying off in a significant reduction in our phone service bill. And if you look at telephones, it's a reduction of $19,800, which is terrific. On the bottom of that screen, which is a little difficult to see, there is a large increase in tuition, which is special education, of $420,000, and I'll review that a little bit more further down the road. Next page, there we go. Here's the second half of the general supplies budget. We continue to see cuts in supplies, gas, heating oil, transportation fuel, books and media, new equipment, and new furniture in order to balance out the increases in some of the other areas. The increase in testing material is a result of changing to exact path testing. Exact path allows the teachers to drill down to see which standards are not being met and provide suggestions and resources for providing the students with additional help to meet the standards. The tuition line I just mentioned represents about 2/3 of the increase in the general fund. This line is for special education students who, for various reasons, are placed out of district. They may be foster children placed in a home in another district, children who, when they moved into the district, were already in placement, or students we have needed to place. This figure is the projection for students who are either already in placement or placement is being discussed. If the placements don't occur, this money is returned to the taxpayers. And I think it's interesting, if we could go back, I don't know if you can see it on the slide just before that, I don't know if you can go backwards. The budgeted amount in 2021 was $1,494,000, and our actual expenses were $1,052,448. So that year, we budgeted to make sure we had enough money to cover our expectations, but we didn't have to spend it, and we were able to give $400,000 back to the taxpayers. In the 2022 budget, we budgeted $1,447,000. We obviously don't know what that final number is going to be. Hopefully, it's going to be less, and we can return more money. But what we have in the pipeline right now for potential placements requires us to budget that $420,000. If we don't spend it, it'll be returned back to the taxpayers, but it does make up a big chunk of the increase in the general fund amount. The increases in the replacement of equipment line, there you go, thank you. The increase in the replacement of equipment line keeps our Chromebook replacement cycle on target, and also includes some teacher laptop replacements, as well as replacement of some of our smart boards. We have been moving to Promethean boards, which are less expensive than the smart boards and don't require additional document cameras and projectors. The increase in the replacement of furniture is for tables at the high school and chairs at Ossipee. Both have not been replaced for over 20 years. Collective bargaining. This past year and a half has been a particularly trying time for everyone. Our support staff has been doing an incredible job. We are very short-staffed, having approximately 30 unfilled positions. There are plenty of jobs available for people right now paying more than we are paying our support staff. This is one of the main reasons it is so difficult to fill these positions. The unemployment rate in New Hampshire is so low that the state is considered to have full employment. The Consumer Price Index has increased, and for New Hampshire, it is approximately 6.1%. We appreciate the hard work of our support staff and need to make our compensation more competitive with the surrounding area. We also had the goal of increasing the amount the support staff is paying for insurance. In order to give our support staff a reasonable raise and increase their portion of insurance without having them end up in the negative, we discussed a 3-year agreement, year 1 with a 5% wage increase and an increase in the copay for insurance to 4% from 3%. Year 2, 4.5% increase and an increase in the insurance copay to 4.5%. And year 3, another 4.5% wage increase and an increase to insurance of 5%. The collective bargaining agreement for the Governor Wentworth administrative team. This is also the year for the collective bargaining for the administrative team. Our principals have been doing a terrific job during these challenging times. We have a great administrative team, all of whom have been with us for long term. Most started out in teaching or other positions within the district. Negotiations had 2 goals from the school board's point of view: to keep salaries competitive with other schools in the state, because we want to retain our administrators, and to increase the insurance copay for the administrators. We have done that with this agreement. Year 1 is a 3% wage increase and an increase from 3 to 4% for insurance copay. Year 2 is a 3% increase in wages, 4.5% copay in insurance, and year 3, 3% increase with a 5% copay for insurance. As new administrators come into the district, they will automatically start with a 10% copay for insurance. Each year, the board puts forth a building and maintenance warrant article for capital improvements. It has varied between $150,000 and $200,000. The years when it has been $150,000, we invariably have projects that are not completed and need to be considered the following year. This is the case this year. The warrant article includes the funds for 3 compressor replacements at the high school, middle school, and technology center, carpeting replacement in Ossipee in several classrooms, window replacements at Carpenter School, and sidewalk replacements at Ossipee and Effingham. Our quotes and estimates for all of the capital improvement needs comes to $243,455. We're looking to increase from $150,000 last year to the old $200,000 level. Also, each year for the past several years, we have presented the Turf Field Capital Reserve warrant article. The capital reserve was established to avoid the district having the full expense of replacing the turf field all at once. The life expectancy of a turf field is 10 to 12 years at a cost of approximately $750,000 to replace. Currently, we have approximately $650,000 in the reserve. When this fiscal year is at its end, we hope to add the $60,000 from this year's warrant article to bring the total to approximately $710,000. We have been able to extend the life of the turf to 15 years through meticulous care. With the continued support of the warrant article, we should have the full cost of the replacement in 2024 when it will be needed to be replaced. Over the past several years, we have retired our bonds at Ossipee, Effingham, and New Durham. Our principal or debt from the Kingswood Complex project continues to decrease. This coming year's reduction is $92,236. The interest increases as our principal decreases because we receive less state building aid with a reduction in our principal. The total reduction in the debt service is $6,495 or 0.18%. RSA 40:13, the official ballot law, also known as SB2, determines what is to be included as part of a default budget. A default budget is the amount of the same appropriations as contained in the operating budget, authorized the previous year, reduced or increased by obligations mandated by law or previously incurred, such as debt service and contracts. One-time expenditures are not included in the default budget. The purpose of presenting a default budget is to give the voters an understanding of what a budget would look like should the proposed operating budget be voted down. The default budget is $433,642 lower than the proposed budget. And these are some important dates to remember. The final budget adoption will be at our January 10th, 2022 meeting. The last day for collective bargaining is January 11th, 2022. Last day for petition warrant articles is January 11th, 2022. The last date to post the warrant, budget, and default budget is January 31st, 2022. Filing for district officers, the school board, and moderator, January 19th to the 28th. And February 5th is the deliberative session at 10 o'clock a.m. And the budget adoption hearing, there'll be more information with increases. Revenue will decrease the amount of money raised to be raised for taxes. So we'll have all of that detail at our next presentation. Any questions on the budget from here? There's a lot to cover on that, and but I think it was important to understand the requirements and the restrictions on the ESSER funds, how they've been used. We haven't allocated any money yet for the ESSER 3 funds, which are, again, going to be in process, and we'll move forward from there. Yes, Charlene?
I did have a quick question. Do you know off the top of your head how much we're paying our bus drivers?
I don't think we know that right now, but I don't think we can really discuss that at this point because it's part of the negotiation process.
Oh, okay. All right. So,
well, we can certainly get that information for you, but it's with the new budget, with the new contract, which hasn't been approved
hasn't been ratified yet. Correct. Okay. I'm sorry. So
yeah.
that was a little premature.
Not a problem.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. I'm coming back to the table.
Okay. Thank you, Jack. All right. The next item is the Stay Open Plan. As a part of our Stay Open Plan, we need to, as per order of the state, include what we're doing for social emotional learning in the district. So Heather put together a comprehensive page here that describes what we're doing for social emotional learning. So I will, for the benefit of the public, I will read this. Social emotional learning has been an ongoing priority for GWRSD, with professional development and resources put in place throughout the district prior to the pandemic. The continued integration of tools and resources gave a strong foundation on which to build from March 2020 forward. In addition to counseling available at all buildings, remotely and now in person again, students and families have had access 2. That's okay. And now in person again, students and families also have access to a high school-based K-12 social worker and an outreach counselor based out of Ossipee Central School. The outreach counselor has expanded outreach district-wide as needed to support the social and emotional well-being of our students. Along with these roles, there are a variety of resources that are used at the elementary level to support social emotional learning. These include, but are not limited to, Toolbox, Mindful Tools Curriculum, Responsive Classroom, Fly 5, Go Zen, Nurtured Heart, Zones of Regulation, and Everyday SEL for elementary schools. The middle school has incorporated Ripple journals in their advisories, which is a resource supported by the New Hampshire Department of Education's Bureau of School Wellness. The Ripple journals are a social emotional learning tool as well as a wellness curriculum. The high school offers support for drug and alcohol prevention as well as community resources and supports for students and families. Furthermore, in the spring of 2021, the district was awarded a System of Care Expansion and Sustainability Grant from the New Hampshire Department of Education. This grant supports our Student Wellness Coordinator, who also serves as the System of Care Project Manager. Our coordinator is responsible for overseeing the planning, implementation, and sustainability of all project objectives and activities, some of which include increasing awareness of mental health issues among school-aged youth, providing training to school personnel and adults, including parents, connecting school-aged youth to needed services, and collaborating with the district social worker and outreach counselor as appropriate in supporting the social, emotional well-being of students. So as you can tell from this document, there is quite a bit going on in the district in the area of social, emotional learning and support for the mental health of our students. So I would hope that you would entertain a motion to have this included in our Stay Open plan.
This is to include this in the Stay Open plan. Any other comments or questions before we move forward? Okay, roll call vote on this too. Tim? Yes. Wendy? Yes. Dr. Jim? Yes. Jim Pittman? Yes. Charlene? Yes. Dana? Yes. And chair votes aye as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I don't want to hurt your ears with the other one. So the next item on the agenda is the COVID-19 update. The first Carroll County Public Health vaccination clinics were held at the end of November in our elementary schools. The second clinics will be held before Christmas. A booster clinic was held on December 3rd for faculty. And of course, I think you all know, and I just want to make sure the public knows that this was entirely optional and only to make it easier for those people who wish to access vaccinations. As you may have heard, New Hampshire leads the nation in the rate of COVID infections, and this increase is reflected in our schools as well. We've had steady growth each month. In September, we had 50 positives. In October, I shouldn't say each month, October was a little bit less at 40. November was a really astounding number, 182 positives. And then last week, for the first week of December, we had 22. So with that high rate of infection, as you can imagine, the absence rate of both staff and students is awfully high. I think Katie alluded to that as having been a problem over the last year and a half for us. But I also want to commend our staff, who in many cases are doing double duty by either filling in for those who are absent or spending additional time instructing or preparing materials for students who have been absent. So people are just doing double duty, filling in for people who are sick and working extra hard to make sure that the students who are absent are getting the information, the materials that they need. So with that, I'm going to move on to the town of New Durham's request.
Kathy, before we leave the Stay Open plan, I just wanted to make a comment. I was looking through my copy and what is wrong? Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I was reading through on the on page 5 the confirmed exposure to COVID-19, and I think it's really important that all of our school nurses are aware of what I think is a really important line regarding the motion that the rest of the board just passed. It says if there has been prolonged exposure with close contact to a person diagnosed with COVID-19 in another circumstance, in this case it would be basketball, but then again it could also become ice hockey and who knows what. It says please call DHHS for advice on whether household contact quarantine recommendations apply, which is very different from saying if you've been exposed and they don't live with you, you don't have to quarantine. And I just think that's a really important distinction that all of our school nurses should be aware of.
Thank you, Charlene. A moving target as always.
Thank you. So we have a request from the New Durham selectmen. Actually, it comes from the interim town clerk, deputy tax collector, and it's addressed to Linda, but of course this is a board issue. I'm hoping to secure the New Durham Elementary School for next year's elections. The dates will be March 8th, 2022, September 13th, 2022, and November 8th, 2022. Please advise me on what the COVID-19 protocols are going to be. Now, I know you are all aware that this has been a very long-standing back and forth in New Durham. In 2014, there was a letter that went to the selectmen asking them to begin to look at another location. At that time, we didn't get a response. And the primary reason for that was that we had a lot of parent concern about strangers coming into the building, and with the open carry law, people were well aware that anyone could come in with a gun, and we wouldn't be able to prevent that because there's an open carry law. So there was a very high degree of concern on the part of parents with everything that was happening at the time with school shootings, and unfortunately still is. And so that led the board in 2016 to decide that elections should not be held in the school. Then, because that vote was made late, it was in August and there was an election in September, you agreed that you would allow it for another period of time, and then it was discontinued. I'm not exactly sure which year. I know it was discontinued as of 2019, but whether there was a year before that, I'm not sure. Because I didn't have time to search through all the minutes. In July 15th of 2020, the board decided to offer the facility for the September 8th election, and also for the November 3rd election due to the pandemic, and feeling that at that time the distancing requirements were such that you wanted to help the town out. So, and as I understood, that was intended for 1 year, but I just want to make sure that's correct.
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly too, we set our school calendar for that particular year, so the students would have the days off for that particular election. That being the presidential election and all of that, we thought that that was an appropriate thing to do. But I thought we made it very clear to all the towns that that wasn't necessarily going to be the policy moving forward. The issue becomes another COVID year. The town of Tuftonboro, for instance, has a facility, the town hall, which they can certainly use and have used for many, many years as their election location. Because of COVID and social distancing and mask requirements and requirements to have an area for the people that don't want to wear masks. Because we had the students not in the building, they opted to use the gym, which gave them plenty of space to spread out and to do their elections. I know Wolfeboro uses the town hall now to do their elections. I think Effingham, I believe, has made other arrangements for elections. But again, I'm not sure of that. This is very difficult. Our calendar is all set for this school year, which includes March of 2022. Unless we want to have a student day off and move that to the end of our school calendar and make the end of school later than it already is, I think that's a challenge. But again, that's just my opinion. I think if we're going to have this request year after year after year, when we do a calendar, we have to decide whether we're going to have elections on, have no school on election days, no matter whether they're September, November, or March, or whether we ask these towns to find other facilities if they can. And I know COVID complicates that process because in normal times, some of these other facilities have plenty of space. But with COVID and the other restrictions that some of these towns are under, that's not necessarily the case. So, what's your feeling? Go ahead, Charlene, hang on a minute.
Well, no, wait, maybe it'll work.
No, I'm walking.
Okay, you walk and I'll talk, and if it cuts out, then we'll do it. I'd like to make a motion that we deny the request.
Okay. So let's put that right down. A motion has been made by Charlene and seconded by Wendy to deny New Durham's request. Any other response? Any questions? Okay, seeing none, let's take a roll call vote. This is the yes vote is to deny the request. Motion is to deny the request for New Durham. Tim? Yes. Wendy? Yes. Dr. Jim? Jim Pittman?
Yes.
Charlene? Yes. Dana? No. And chair is going to vote yes. So it's 5, 1, and 1 to deny the request. Okay. Moving on, right to know.
All right. Thank you. Okay. So before this information goes up on the website, I have a draft. It's not complete, but I did want you to have an opportunity to look at it. We have had 16 right to know requests since last June. And as you can see from, I know, well, you've seen most of these anyway because you've gotten copied on them, but there are a few that you didn't get copied on, and you can see, the sum total of the requests really have taken a lot of time. So what we have here is the date of the request, the name of the requester, the information requested, there was also sometimes a request within a request after there was a response. So that's listed there, responses to the requester, the date fulfilled, and then the date that the material was either emailed or that the individual came in to review it in the office. So the vast majority of these come from one individual. I really didn't count that up to see how many, but again, they do come from primarily one individual. So this is the way it will look on the website. All personal information that needs to be redacted will be redacted before it goes up. And just to give you an idea of some of the time involved here. For the teachers, compiling the individual teacher hours, it was 130 hours for them. For IT, 29 hours. For the curriculum director, 12 hours. For my administrative assistant, for Linda, it was about 50 hours. For the business administrator, 3 hours. For me, about 62 hours. So if you just, I did not go into each hourly rate for each individual, but I thought at a very low rate, I thought I would do an estimate. So that's 164 hours, and if you multiply that by 30, it's almost $5,000 for that part. But we also have, in addition to that, we have attorney's bills, and we've got about 40-something hours of attorney time into this. And right now, we've been billed about $7,500, but I do expect that we haven't been billed for November yet, so we'll be seeing another substantial bill in November. So.
Here you go. Here.
So I know, poor Jack. Kathy, what happened? Stuff. I mean, do we just shred it?
No, if they don't pick it up, it just stays ready for someone to review. So, it's impossible. There's such a volume of material that it's really impossible to put it all on the website. And I know one of the requesters in an email to me, and I think the board has probably seen that email too, said, well, that they support us putting it up, but they would like all the material put up too. But you can't possibly do that. I mean, there's no way to do it. However, anybody would be welcome to come in and view the material. I mean, there isn't anything that I wouldn't want anyone to see. So so with everything listed up there, if there's something that someone wants to see, they can come in and see it. And it's best if they make an appointment just so we can have someone to help them. But yes, and some teacher materials we had, as I said, we had like 24 boxes of teacher materials, and they were never viewed. So I emailed, and then we got them back again because the individual said that they would come back later, and so we got them back again, and they weren't viewed. So anyway, they've been returned.
Yeah, I think it's very, very important to understand, and I'm not going to name the individual tonight because anybody that wants this information will be able to go on the website and see who these individuals are. But the one individual specifically that has made the most requests has not come in to view the material. He continues to make requests. We continue to do all the work, pile up the material for him to review, and he does not come into the office, make an appointment, completely ignores his responsibility as a 91A requester to review the material that they're requesting, which is very frustrating for me. We're more than happy to follow the law and to provide the material that's being requested, but take the time, if you're going to make the request, take the time to come into the office and review the material. That's what you're asking for. We're going to do all work, so you do your work and come in and request it. So again, names and requests and when the material was requested, when it was available, when the requester actually came in to review, will be up on the website. And I think anybody watching this or listening to it, go on the website once it's up and review and understand, who's making the requests and what the reasons are for the requests and why they don't bother showing up. Charlene?
I just had a quick question, and math is not my strong suit, but if I got the numbers correct, Kathy, you said 130 hours for teachers, 29 hours for IT, 12 hours for our curriculum director, 50 hours for Linda, and 3 hours for Kathy O'Blinis, and then 62 for you? And I looked at the math, and I think it's closer to...
You're right. You're right. It's way off. So it's going to be a lot more expensive.
Well, I mean, the total number of hours I came up with was 286.
No, you're right, Charlene.
Okay, well, good, because, I mean, I was thinking, wait, what? Okay.
Yeah, I think I left myself out. I think I left my hours out.
Well, that explains why, yeah, okay, got it, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Moving along to something a bit more positive. The school donations. We have had an incredible month of donations, and I just want to give people kudos for being so generous to our district. The Dixon family donated a beautiful structure for the playground out in Ossipee, and then there was a volunteer group that installed it. So that was a real positive, and it just looks beautiful. I do have some pictures that I can circulate later so you can see it. Doug Lamparter donated a Theragun G3 Pro to Kingswood Athletics. And if you don't know what a Theragun is, I didn't either, so I thought I better ask. And it's a powerful massage gun for deep muscle treatment for performance recovery and pain relief, and it's to be used by our athletic trainer who is qualified and trained to use it. Middle school had many donations for the annual Thanksgiving drive this year. Maxfield Real Estate donated $1,000. Winnie Paint, $150 gift card for Hannaford. Bradley's Hardware donated 32 baskets. At Vacation Rentals in Moultonboro, $200. Berkshire Hathaway, $100. Lucas Roasting, 28 bags of coffee. Full Belly Deli, 28 frozen side dishes and dinner rolls. And Keller Williams and Mountain Realty, 20 pies. So just real community effort and really nice to see, especially at this time of year when so many people need it and so many others of us are so fortunate. And for another positive is the American Education Week letter. Thank you. Got to flip through those pages. Thank you. So American Education Week was November 15th through the 19th. At the very beginning, there's the passage from Seasons of Love, 525,600 minutes. How do you measure? Measure a year. In daylights, in sunsets, in midnights, in cups of coffee, in inches, in miles, in laughter, in strife. Since American Education Week was established in 1921, our world has faced many challenges. Public education, however, has been a grounding force through all those years because of those inspired to make a difference, to keep rising, to sacrifice, to give all they have because of you. And of course, this is to our staff. We remain so incredibly proud of your resilience, fortitude, compassion, and devotion to the children and families of our communities. To give each one of you who has chosen this life of service, you've made a conscious decision to give selflessly of your time, your energy, and your heart, no matter what. We hope you have not measured this past year by the challenges or strife, but instead by the everyday signs of your unwavering commitment to helping them find their way through it all. We hope you measure it in their laughter, in the moments that remind you of what a difference you make, because you do, with deepest gratitude. And that was from Heather and myself. So, and I think that's probably a good way to end my section of the report. So Jack, I think school boards.
Really not a whole lot to make. The School Board Association hasn't been too active since our annual delegate assembly. There was a question about the letter that went from the National School Board Association, which the New Hampshire School Board Association took exception to, which I think now it's 20 or 20 other state associations have also withdrawn from the National School Board Association, their membership. Ordinarily, when the National School Board Association has a recommendation, they talk to their member school boards, and national state associations and get a sense of where they want to go. They sent that letter to the president's staff without ever consulting any of the state associations. State associations were very upset with the content. The person that sent that letter is now working for the Biden administration, which was an afterthought of the result of that letter. So that person is no longer associated with the National School Board Association, but now working for the Biden administration. We took a vote at the New Hampshire School Board Association meeting to withdraw from the National Association, which we have done. That created some issues for the New Hampshire School Board Association as well, because there are some members that were very upset that we withdrew. There were others that were very supportive of the fact that we withdrew. There's the main reason that we were part of the association is some of the services that they provide for local school board associations, training and all of that. The New Hampshire School Board Association has found replacement resources for most of that activity, and we'll be putting the resources toward that rather than going back into the New Hampshire, the National School Board Association. So that's kind of where we stand on that. It's we didn't bother taking a stand one way or the other. We were just, with most other state associations, outraged that they sent a letter on behalf of all of their members stating a particular policy. So we're no longer part of the National School Board Association. So moving on from that, under Chairman's report, first notices from the school board. Unfortunately, I had a lot of sympathy cards sent. We sent sympathy cards to Carolyn and Bert Ramsey, to Patty Morrissey, and to Brian and Deb Yeaton on the passing of their mothers, and to Nicole Campbell on the passing of her grandfather. So that was there. Now, the two items that I added to the agenda early on, the first is to establish a superintendent search committee. And through a conversation I had with Barrett Christina, who is the executive director of the New Hampshire School Board Association, one of the functions that the School Board Association provides is superintendent searches. They've been doing superintendent searches for as long as the association has been in business, as far as I know. And they use professional consultants to do that. The consultants that they use recommend in a case like this, where we're a little late into the game, that it's best to have the search committee made up of 5 or 6 school board members, and all of the meetings for the search committee are open to the public, except for the actual interviews of prospective candidates. So they'd be posted meetings just like this meeting has been. They'll be open to the public, but the agendas are very different. There's no public input and all that. It's an entire process of how you go about searching, how you post your notices, all the different scenarios of how you actually go searching for a superintendent. We have not done this for over 30 years. The last superintendent search that I'm aware of was when Sherwood Flurry came to this district, I think back in 1990 or 1991. Since then, we've been extremely fortunate to be able to move from Sherwood to Jack Robertson and then on to Kathy. We've been very fortunate to be able to move within-house from superintendent to superintendent, and have been very successful doing that. One of the few school districts that I know of that has been able to do that for such a long period of time. Right now, we're not at that position. We're in a position where we don't have an in-house candidate that we can just call on that's going to step up, which is fine. That happens. But the process is very, very complicated. It's not just putting an ad in the newspaper and seeing who you get. There's certainly ed rules and regulations on what superintendents' job descriptions are, and plus so much more that superintendents do as part of the process. So anyway, I'm recommending that we establish a superintendent search committee made up of this board, the members that can do it. Part of the commitment that board members need to make is, from my conversations with the executive director of New Hampshire School Board Association, is that there'll be probably 10 to 12 meetings once a week for the next 10 to 12 weeks, each lasting anywhere from 2.5 to 3 hours to go through this process. Once we get to that point of the public meetings being over and getting into the actual interview process, those will be just the search committee and the consultants that are working with us to do the actual interview process. Once the interviews are done, then the public would beat the final candidates that we bring to the table. There will be a survey that goes out tomorrow to the school board. They call it an 18-box survey that all school board members, administrators, and we're coming up with a whole list of the people within the district that want to get that. That'll be sent out tomorrow with the request that all be completed and returned by the Friday the 10th. Part of the process is also there's going to be a draft at our first meeting, which we haven't quite set yet, but we will shortly. And that will be a public survey that will be available on the website for all the public, and we'll make sure that we promote that very well as far as where to find it on the website, whether you're a parent or a resident of the district or whatever. If you want to fill out that survey, again, on what you're looking for the next superintendent. It's a long process. It's a complicated process, but we're going to keep the public fully informed, and the rest of the board members that may not want to commit to the time commitment are fully informed as well. So I guess first I would like a motion to form the search committee, and then I will poll the board on who thinks that they might be able to participate based on the time commitments as I've explained. Okay, so it's been moved by Jim Pittman and seconded by Tim to form the committee. Okay, so all those in favor of forming the committee: Tim? Yes. Wendy? Yes. Dr. Jim? Yes. Jim Pittman? Yes. Charlene? Yes. Dana? Yes. And chair votes aye as well. Now I'll poll the committee, and if you think you can serve on the committee, fine. If not, again, you can still come to all of the public meetings and hear what's going on at all the public meetings. If you can't come to all of them, that's fine. And then any information from the interview process would be shared with the entire board, obviously, once we get down to a certain number, and our board will recommend the final candidate at a point down the road. So I start with, again, if you don't think you can commit, just say no, and we'll form the committee based on those that can. Tim? Wendy? No. Dr. Jim? No. Jim Pittman?
Yes.
Charlene?
Yes.
Dana?
Yes.
Okay. Chair votes yes, and I have an email from Stephanie, who could not be here tonight, who is very interested in serving, so she would be a yes in abstention. And I'm going to put a question mark next to Krista. She's ill right at this point, so I'm not sure if she'll be able to serve or not. And Kelly is going to let me know tomorrow. Okay, Kelly is in maybe tomorrow. Okay, then thank you. So the second request is to hire the New Hampshire School Board Association and their expert consultants who have done numerous searches for them as our assistant in going through the search process. So that would be another motion. Who made the motion? Dr. Jim? Okay, so the motion now is to hire the New Hampshire School Board Association to conduct the search with us and be our advisors through the search process. Tim?
Yes.
Wendy?
Yes.
Dr. Jim?
Yes.
Jim Pittman?
Yes.
Charlene?
Yes.
Dana?
Yes.
Chair votes aye. Okay, we're good to there. So I think what I will do is I will contact New Hampshire School Board Association tomorrow morning. I will tell them of the positive vote tonight. They will draw up the contracts and all of that, and they will set up with the consultants our first meeting. I think I know that they want to have a meeting early next week, and we'll confirm if they can set that time up. I believe that the meetings that they were talking about initially, there'll be in-house meetings for us. The consultants may be zoomed in on a remote basis, but we will meet in person to go through, and from what I understand, there's a lot of paperwork involved to start the process. So as soon as I know that date and all, I will email everybody and let them know exactly date, time, and where we're gonna meet. Okay? Okay, let's move on to committee reports. Academic affairs.
Well, in Krista's absence, I was asked to lead the committee meeting tonight. And you can see on your agenda, and it seems to correspond well with our agenda, we have GBEBAR. Tonight is the first read. And then we have student dress code first read. And I'm going to be making a comment that we discussed at our committee meeting about that. And then JICAR student dress code first read to strike. And then the ones we're going to be looking to the board for approval are JICD and JICDR, JICI, and JICK. So starting with the policies, I'm hoping you've all had a chance to read through them. We had a significant discussion about one of the aspects of JICA regarding the student dress code. And unfortunately, two of our members couldn't be with us tonight, but Tim and I were concerned about, and I guess before I go into that, I should really express my appreciation to the administrative team for providing input and taking a look at this. And we did have a letter from a student who wrote a very nice letter asking us to re-examine what I think we can all agree is a fairly antiquated policy that we're moving to strike. The thing that caused the most discussion was the idea of caps, hats, or hoods must be removed when in school. Thank you. If you look at the third paragraph that reads, caps, hats, or hoods must be removed when requested by school personnel, except for health, religious, or safety reasons, we felt that it was really putting an unfair burden on the school administrators as well as the teachers, because it's leaving the enforcement of this up to the individual. So Tim and I, and we wanted to bring this to the board to get the board's, the sense of the board on this. We reworded that to say caps, hats, or hoods must be removed when in school buildings, except for health, religious, or safety reasons. And then we also reinstituted the last line of that says building principals may suspend this rule for special hat day celebrations. And, I think our general, and Tim, you can join in on this if you want to add any comments. I think our feeling was that we don't feel it's appropriate to abandon this positive aspect of our school community's culture, because we know that the elementary school principals, at least reported by Tim, are very diligent about, having our students, male and female, continue to show this kind of respect when they're inside a building, or when, they say the pledge, or when the national anthem is sung, that kind of a thing. And so we felt that was important, that if we keep the policy very clear, then there's no wiggle room. It's not, Ms. So-and-so who teaches PE says you can wear hats, but Mr. So-and-so who teaches geometry says you can't. And we just thought it kept everything nice and consistent and clean. So we would like to change that wording. And there are a few, I think that's the only substantive thing. We have few little thises and that's with Oxford commas and whether to use a comma or a semicolon and whatnot. But that was the main substantive issue we discussed, and we would also be very, obviously wanting to hear what the board's thoughts are on that.
Right, this is the first read, so I think what you want to do is review all of this information, and at our next board meeting, between now and then, if there's some changes or concerns, send it to Heather and get that in the works. It's still on.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm still talking. Okay. So let's see. So that's pretty much it. Did anyone have any questions about the policies that we're wanting the board to approve tonight?
Yeah, I think I'm fine with them. If we're okay with them, we could do them as a block. If we want to approve all 4 of them as a block.
Okay. Do you want to do that now, or have me I can wrap up the committee report pretty quickly?
Yeah. Let's do that, and then if there's anything else, Dana, you have a comment?
Yeah, I believe that there are changes since the last meeting, so a lot of us haven't had time to see the changes. So we're not going to vote on it tonight, are we? No. Okay.
Not on the first 2.
The other concern I had was trying to enforce something that's impossible to enforce. And the thing that got me was when we had a no hat rule at Kingswood. And then you have to pay $1 for a fundraiser to wear a hat. It seemed redundant, and either we wear a hat or we don't wear a hat. I mean, why not just wear a pink shirt, or, that always bothered me, to have a no hat rule and then have a fundraiser for $1, students could wear a hat. Anyhow, it's just
okay.
A little comment.
All right. So I think what we'd want to do is let's have a motion to approve JICD and JICDR, JICI, and JICK as a block. Oh, okay. Move. That's all right. Move by Tim, and seconded by seconded by Wendy. Okay, so we're going to move those policies as a block. Okay. Okay. So and then you can finish your report. Okay. All those in favor? Tim.
Yes.
Wendy. Yes. Dr. Jim.
Yes.
Jim Pittman.
Yes.
Charlene.
Yes.
Dana.
Yes.
And chair votes aye as well. Now you're back on.
Okay, well, I can wrap this up pretty quickly. We had, a while back, Krista Abear and I both had expressed interest in having the recently passed HB 2 regarding discriminatory practice prohibitions, and also a discussion about CRT, because it was also known as critical race theory, because it was in the news quite a bit, and there was so much misconceptions about it throughout the district. So tonight what we talked about was We have from the New Hampshire Department of Justice and the New Hampshire Attorney General guidance for anyone regarding not having any discriminatory practices in their schools, K through 12. And probably most importantly, we wanted to make sure we made the point, because it seems to be a hot topic. We wanted to, further amplify the point that critical race theory is not taught in the Governor Wentworth Regional School District. That is exclusively taught at post-secondary education, post-secondary institutions such as maybe colleges, law schools, and whatnot. But the GWRSD only teaches students pre-K through 12, and therefore, because we don't have, as part of our district, a college or a university or a community college or a law school, critical race theory is not being taught in the school district. And last but not least, we had a wonderful presentation from Katie, and she amplified everything and told you even more tonight. And that concludes my report, unless anybody wants to add anything.
Thank you very much. Tim, building and maintenance. Anything going on?
Nothing.
No report? Okay, I think I spoke enough about finance, so we don't have to talk about finance. We will have a final budget presentation on January 10th, at which time we will vote to approve the budget and move forward to prepare for the deliberative session and in February. And human resources, we have some items to talk about in non-public. So we will move to advanced planning. You can see the dates down below. I'm not sure when these virtual events are going to happen, but anyway, they're pretty cool. Tomorrow, Wednesday night, is the middle school concert. Virtual link to be released. On the 10th, Ossipee Central School Music Concert, Effingham on the 15th. The high school music concert on the 16th. Also on the 16th, Ossipee Central Music Concert. And the Christmas recess, the 24th to the 31st. And our next school board meeting right here in this lecture room is January 10th at 7 p.m. Unless some board members have particular comments. Anybody have a comment? I figured you would probably.
Oh, thanks a lot. Thank you so much. This is something that I've been thinking about a lot because I found the comments and the analogy very disturbing, and I want to say that in a couple of meetings in the past, I think it was at the September meeting, possibly the October meeting, and again at the November meeting, there were comments made by members of the public that compared our beautifully built and maintained facilities to Auschwitz. I know someone specifically said Auschwitz, and at another couple of meetings, they were referring to our wonderful music room in the Kingswood Arts Center as the shower room. And I have taken some time to try to collect my thoughts and figure out a way to express my horror and outrage at these kinds of comments. And I just want to say that it greatly saddens me that there are people who really believe that having to be in a separate room because they refuse to follow our mask protocol is equivalent to the murder of millions of people. And I found that comparison breathtakingly ignorant and incredibly insensitive. And not only that, but a slap in the face to the taxpayers of this district and our students, the taxpayers who have spent their hard-earned money so that we can have these wonderful, up-to-date, beautifully maintained facilities. And
I think they're trying to say something, Charlene.
And I just want to say that I'm just profoundly disappointed that there are people with that attitude.
Thank you, Charlene. I have to apologize because I went right down through the agenda and I missed public input at the end of the meeting. So we will have public input for a couple of minutes. If there's anyone in the back room that would like to speak, I'll give you 5 minutes. And then we'll go 5 minutes back in this room and then we'll call it a night. It's been a long night for everybody.
Two of us that would like public comment.
You have to come up to the microphone to speak.
There's two of us here. Can you hear us now?
I can hear you now.
You say you can't hear us?
Yeah, you got to speak up though because your volume's a little low.
Okay, yeah, so Martin Valen here again, just coming back to where we had left off earlier before it was cut off. Just speaking on the myocarditis inflammation, the heart muscle pericarditis inflammation of the outer lining of the heart, the study now shows an average age group of 12 to 17-year-old children are experiencing myocarditis, an average of 1 to 2,680 specifically after the second dose. So now I know local schools here are big into sports. Clearly, we had the whole basketball team in there discussing some few items. Sports are really big here, right? What does it really matter at the end of the day if your star athlete cannot play because she was hospitalized due to heart failure on the court just because she had an adverse reaction several days after the shot? The mass exodus from Maine and other states alike will bleed over into the state. What is this bleed over that will happen, you ask? There will be loss of jobs, vacancies unable to be filled in local hospitals, teachers not having classes to teach, and school board members not having schools to preside over. Is this where we're headed? Now, the question I have for you all, after I presented all this information to you, the different pathogens in our children's masks, and I've shown you that the CDC is actively investigating adverse reactions, and there's enough reported cases for the CDC to take action. Is this something you as parents, grandparents, and as leaders have the school board want this to happen to the children of our community? I'd like to finish this by saying, live free or die trying. My children and their mother are alive and well, but chose to move away due to the challenges faced with the items presented. The local school system and an advanced practicing nurse that has left a vacancy at a local hospital. Many more will follow. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. And if you can speak to the microphone, will be good.
Is it my turn?
Yes, it is.
Can you hear me? We don't know where the microphone is.
Okay, we can hear you fine.
Okay. First of all, we can't hear everything that you said, or I can't. I'm partially hearing impaired, but I just wanted to express my thoughts and prayers to Krista Abear. I understand that she's ill. I wanted to also congratulate Kathy Egbert, and thank you so much for everything you've done the past 23 years. You've been very kind to me personally, and I wanted to make a point of thanking you. I do respectfully disagree when it comes to the COVID policies of the school board. And Charlene, specifically tonight, when one thing that bothered me very much was your suggesting that if the teenagers had been vaccinated, that perhaps going without masks would be safer. My question to you is, do you encourage your children to experiment with drugs? Because when you say, we want our kids to be vaccinated, this is an experiment. It's only approved for emergency use, and the FDA, who has approved this, has been served a FOIA request. In other words, Freedom of Information Act. They wanted to know why the FDA approved the Pfizer vaccinations for emergency use, and the FDA requested 55 years to reveal that information. I'm very, very concerned with adverse effects, especially in children.
where this COVID is not affecting kids. None of our kids have died. German study of over 5,000 kids said no healthy kids died from COVID or the variants. So I'm very concerned with decisions around masking the kids, which many studies show are unhealthy. Every study that I've seen has shown unhealthy and ineffective. We've spoken about this before. So I just wanted to conclude with that, and thank you for this time. It was a very long meeting, past my bedtime, so thank you for listening.
Thank you very much.
Jack,
Have a good night.
I didn't catch the names of the two speakers. Who were they? Did they identify themselves and I just missed it?
Juanita Hill was the last speaker.
Okay, that was Juanita, and then did anybody catch the name of the gentleman who spoke before that?
Yeah, I think I missed that. I don't think. Excuse me, sir. Could you tell me what your name is? I'm sorry. I didn't hear that.
Martin Bailey.
Martin Bailey?
Martin Bailey? Okay, thank you. What town are you from?
Sorry?
What town are you from?
Ossipee.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Have a good night.
So that helps.
Okay, anybody in this room would like to speak? It's been a long night. Okay, well, let's go into non-public. We do have, I don't know if you have anything, Kathy, but I do. Okay.
Jack?
Yes.
Jack, could I just state for the record for Ms. Hill, who I think taught all three of my daughters, I have never encouraged my children to take drugs.
Okay. All right. Yes. Well, we need a motion, too, to go into non-public under RSA 91A, semicolon 3, paragraph 2. I'm going to say legal and personnel. All right. We got a motion by Wendy. And we got a second by Jim Pittman. And we've got a yes for Tim? Yes. Wendy? Yes. Dr. Jim? Yes. Jim Pittman? Yes. Charlene? Yes. Dana? Yes. And Chair. We are in non-public. Thank you.